Our audio is now on.
Audio's now on.
Yeah. Let me make sure you guys are loud enough too. And fix the window capture because, oh my God.
It is not correct.
It is on, so the way it works is I have to go to the correct channel. And when I do that, it'll then pick up the show, but otherwise it has a really hard time doing this. There we go. Okay. So now I just gotta, yeah, they've had this thing set up really strangely.
Why don't you pop out our voice chat and just have the voice chat captured?
Is what I'm gonna try to do, but it means I'm gonna have to figure out. I should have gotten this figured out before we went live. Damn. Oh man, now you guys are seeing all the back end. There we go. Shoot. And now it doesn't want to take the live show in progress feed at all. Discord. Really, OBS. All right. And now I just need to make this go away. I gotta get Roll20 open too. Maybe you should have done this, Morgan. Maybe at this point you know the setup way better than I do. Okay, it seems like it's picked up Roll20 too, so that's good. It's now, and then
You'll have to move yours down just a little bit because your resolution's slightly different than mine.
Yes, this is also true. A million little things. Oh right, I just full screen you guys. I think there's a way to. Well, now it's just gonna see this. Well, it's because there are only 4 of us now, so now Discord wants to lay everything out differently.
Well, what I do is I just make it the full length of your monitor.
Oh, there we go. Now it goes. Boom. There it is. It did the thing. Now I just gotta line it up. And that's kind of right. That's better. We can get started at this point. I'll fiddle with this.
Okay. Welcome to Doctors and DMs. I am the DM, Morgan Forbush. I am a cultural anthropology master's student here at UW-Milwaukee, and we are joined by only 3 people. This is going to be our last. We're going on a little month hiatus after this, or roughly a month, maybe more like 3 weeks, to kind of get our other 2 players in. We have someone who's coming back from Turkey, and then someone who's coming back who's moving here from Scotland. So we're going to give them time to actually get here, to get all their affairs in order.
But in the meantime,
there are 3 of us.
yeah, and I'm Thomas Malaby, professor of anthropology at UW-Milwaukee. Oh, and I'll be playing Jarl the Oak, a dwarven battlemaster fighter.
And I'm Luke. I'm a sociocultural anthropology master's student at UW-Milwaukee, and I'm playing Verfa, the dwarf artificer.
And I'm Ren. Oh, big interrupt. No, it's fine. I did that. I'm Ren, the interrupter. That's my new title. I'm a master's student.
It's a new subclass.
Yes, a new subclass. I'm playing Ludwig Everyman, the man.
I believe that would be a Bard College, wouldn't it? College of Interruption.
There you go.
College of Interruption. It would just be puns that you just interrupt people with.
It's glamour, but more annoying.
You could have a college of toxic masculinity, and it's all like mansplaining, interrupting, and you could have maybe dad jokes in there, but that would be a shame to subject dad jokes to that. But it would be like, all those would be all the subclass features, right?
Mm-hmm.
Sitting backwards on chairs.
Right.
Alrighty.
The vicious mockery would have certain distinct traits to it.
Oh yeah.
So, have we fallen asleep already? Did we get a long rest out of this?
Oh yeah, I kind of
left early.
So what happened when you left is everyone was sleeping in the tent. Ren went off to Ludvira went off to wash Verfa's coat. And then I think he went to bed or something, but Verfa got very angry that his coat got destroyed. And then spent the rest of the night with Balgair, who it doesn't need a long rest because he's had a long rest, remaking his coat, and then everyone else was sleeping. That's kind of where we were at.
All right. So we've woken up the and I'm all well rested. I was completely tapped out at the end of that battle, so I guess I'm eager to feel reassured that I am no longer at the end of everything.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I believe what we said, like in the morning, I think, I don't know. Do we think Haya would leave to scout ahead and like meet you guys somewhere, or do you think that he would stay around and just kind of be quiet?
I mean,
I think he would probably stay around. It's hard for me to think of a reason why he would leave unless there was
Okay.
something that he felt like the group wasn't pursuing that it needed to pursue to find Carl.
Right.
Okay. That is a-okay. Then he shall stay with the group. Okay. All right. And then in the morning, you're kind of hanging around. Verfa, I think I gave you a level of exhaustion because you just stayed up so long. To get
Never
your
washing that
on.
coat again. My God. What a disaster that was.
Well, I've repaired it,
It's fine. Everything's fine.
so you're forgiven.
For now.
The artificer's way. If it's repairable, it's forgivable.
That's right. Exactly.
So you kind of get up in the morning, and you kind of notice that Balgair has eaten a decent part of the manticore, and it also seems like he kind of was like, I kind of want to try some bird, and so he roasted some periton. Unfortunately, um, as Verfa was working on it, he didn't quite notice what periton Verfa had gone to pick up, which unfortunately was the periton that had been given the mushrooms. So
Oh no.
Balgair has a slight case of food poisoning, and he is kind of going to be incapacitated for the rest of this for the duration. He's just kind of sitting there whinging and whining about he just wanted some
Oh
chicken.
no. The worst thing you can do is cook those mushrooms. Oh my God. The poor guy. Oh, it's the last thing. We never do that.
Is
So
it notably
Be sick
distinct
as a
from when
dog for a week.
Is it notably distinct from when he gets too drunk, or is it about the same?
I feel like it'd be worse because drunk is like, oh, Belgair's just kind of a happy sort of like punching things. This one he's just like visibly like stomach upset, just feeling like crap. He's like, I'm just gonna go sit on a horse and you guys can pull my horse along. I'm not gonna do anything. Like he just kind of
Verfa,
like
Wow.
yeah,
If he's willing to like ride on a horse, he's definitely not
yeah,
feeling well.
he's not feeling good.
yeah. Verfa will use the rope and the canvas that we used to construct our tent, as well as the branch that he had flying around when we were fighting, and constructed essentially like a Bulgare-sized baby Bjorn for Haya to carry him in.
Perfect. Oh man. Well, what's highest strength? It's like 18, right?
Yeah, I thought he was.
Highest strength is 20.
Yeah,
20.
it's
Okay.
pretty strong.
Imagine a medium creature-sized baby Bjorn.
Well, he could shift too, right, to more manageable
true.
size, I suppose.
Or knowing
Wait,
Bulgaria, can
5
switch to
times
an
your
even more
strength score.
unreasonable size.
So 100 pounds. Okay. So yeah, it probably changes to like a smaller size because I think Bulgaria is probably over 100 pounds. But yeah. I think. I don't know. We'll see. Well, I just did a quick Google search. That might be wrong, but whatever. He can carry him. So, are you gonna continue on your road trip, which has gone on for a few sessions?
Yeah.
Alrighty.
I think so. Yeah.
So you're going on your road trip. Or you're moving. Let me drag you to.
Do I recall? Is there like a mountain range we need to pass through or something? Where the border is?
There's kind of a not necessarily a border range, but it gets a little bit hillier as you go on. So you're right here, and now you're kind of going.
Mm-hmm.
Our party symbol is tankard.
Why
tankard.
wouldn't it be a tankard?
That's a good question.
Answer me that question.
I can't answer you that question. You've asked an impossible task.
So as you kind of go, as you're going here, let me drag you down here. You kind of start to hit the beginnings of mountain ranges, and you kind of see things are a little bit more gravelly. They start to get noticeably drier as you go away from the coast. There's certain lush parts that you see in rocky outcrops that are quite striking, but it gets to be a lot drier and gravelier of soil, so you couldn't really necessarily farm here.
Careful, scoop up a small
Probably
handful and
pastoralist.
chew it like tobacco.
Your teeth are probably a dentist's worst nightmare. Do you chew on
But-
ice? No,
but no
I
plaque.
chew on gravel.
Yes.
No plaque, except for the limestone.
Ice is for amateurs.
That's right.
One day I think I'll move on to bars of steel.
Bars of steel.
Ball bearings.
Yeah.
So as you moving away from the coast, because that's kind of where the path is leading you. It's leading you south, kind of to hit the northern border of Jamal, and you start to see, you're kind of on a higher elevation. You kind of start to see a little bit more pathways you can see where people have moved about, and you're like, okay, so that must be a pathway, and that's a pathway. And there are several pathways that cut up to meet your path. And also, as you are cutting south, you start to see a rather large city, or what you presume is a city. There's a lot of buildings. You see this. Let me get this on the right layer. You see kind of this old city gate, or used to be a night.
I've been there.
Oh yeah. Well, there you go.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's an old city gate, and it's probably been you see it. It was at one point a very grand city gate. It looks like it's been knocked down or kind of pushed. Just overall just deteriorated over the years. And as you kind of walk through this city gate, it kind of looks like a border gate in a way that's kind of symbolizing you are entering Jamal. And as you walk through it, you see a better idea of this large grand city that sits right on the opposite side of the city gate, kind of going into the valley in front of you. And it looks so this large town looks very impressive. I can imagine it's very so this large town, it looks very impressive from afar away. It looks like it sprawls over many miles. It has a main street, and then it has several, alleys coming off of it with many buildings built up. It looks like it had some form of agriculture surrounding it, but that is no longer. As you get close, you realize that these farmlands have been dried up and they're no longer used. There's old plows and stables that are left abandoned as you're walking into town. Or I presume you're walking into town. So everyone give me a perception 18. Or perception. I don't know
Well,
why.
yes, if you'd like to give us a free
Well, there you
18.
go. You don't get the 18. Perception check.
Do I have any kind of benefit from stone cutting, or is this unrelated to the?
It's unrelated.
Okay.
Oops.
So with
Ignore
my
that. Sorry about that.
with my exhaustion disadvantage, I have 8.
You're good. Jarl has appeared.
Sorry, I clicked the wrong thing. When
Okay.
I was, I'm gonna
Oh.
try. I'm gonna try the roll 20
Okay.
roll thing again, which was so bad, so evil to me in the past. But just so it can be
I
seen on the
lied.
stream.
It's
So here
11.
we go.
So 13 to 15 and 11. Okay. So you guys are
Not
kind
an
of
18.
not an 18, not an 18. So you're walking around. You realize that this area is, you guys got all above 10. So you realize this area is kind of downtrodden as you get closer to the town center. Actually, you start to see, you realize the farm fields haven't been, you know, plowed or planted in a very long time. You see that a lot of the buildings are actually abandoned. And as you get closer to town, you just a lot of this large town is just empty. The main street seems relatively populous, but this is kind of like an old tourist boom town sort of feel if you've been to like a town that was busy in the 60s and have just kind of declined. The main street is have people in it and some of the shops are open and then people, live in some of the buildings outside of Main Street, but there's just not enough people to populate what once was a large populated city. And
Hmm.
so you see a lot of, as you're walking in, you see tattered valances, various roofs are collapsed. You see the facades of some really nice fancy stonework. Wherefore can see that there's a lot of work put into certain hotels and certain churches look very pretty, but there's just no one in there. There's just no one to live in these places or habitate them. But you still see some people in it. There's probably as you walk through Main Street, I have a thing I can pull you into the thing. And as you're kind of coming into town, you do see the main area is still relatively upkept. There's just a lot of everything outside of this main street is just not utilized. Um, and you see there's people doing their everyday thing. A lot of them are just kind of you know, sitting on stoops or hanging around, leaning on buildings. There doesn't seem to be a lot going on. It's just kind of various people going about their business. It's kind of a boring town. It seems like it used to be something special and it's just kind of gone downhill. Um, a lot of them are older. There's not a lot of young people you see, a lot of old men hanging out in stoops, drinking flagons of ale, and so forth. Some of them are in, nice silver robes. Some of them are in brown robes. So it's kind of this mixture of, sultanate garb and other garb. There's some, you see some market squares that are that have markets set up, but a lot of once busy town squares are just kind of empty. There might be a well, but there's no stalls, there's no people hanging around. Yeah, yeah. Pastoralism. You kind of see that it is as you're looking around. Um, you see there's some. It's definitely some business coming from the Sultanate, given on like what people are wearing. You're like, oh, those people must be from, I know where those people are from. Those people are from the Sultanate. So there's some trade going in and out, and it does seem like there might be some um, some livestock, some cattle, but definitely no farming. It seems like the land has kind of given up the ghost on that. But but yeah.
Does it look like what we're seeing in terms of the landscape is sort of since the shattering that maybe the economy was built differently
Yeah,
before
you
the
kind of get that
shattering?
idea
Like,
um, from like might be Verfa's architecture background. You can look at some of these older buildings and notice that these buildings have been here for a long time and have been abandoned for, you know, what he would presume is about 2 decades. So since the shattering, these kind of gone downhill.
Okay.
And as you're kind of looking,
Do I see anything
oh, go ahead.
like a fighting ring or some, like people who are sort of down and out? This might be the kind of pursuit that you might find. Has anyone set up a kind of
Not
outdoor low rent entertainment kind of thing?
as it doesn't look like there's any like fighting per se, but you do start to see um these posters of some kind. They look like they're kind of pinned up at very regular intervals. Um, and I'll get to the dilapidated church. I haven't quite said that. Quite explained that yet. Sorry. You see these posters pinned up at regular intervals, and they're all exactly the same. So you're kind of marveling at how they have the exact same posters pinned up everywhere, and it's stuck up, and the poster says and exclaims, "Escape to the golden age, wonder at the old age before the collapse." And I have this poster for you. Token
Oh,
layer.
wow.
I made a poster for you.
I'm imagining
What
an
is
artificer had
that?
something to do with the presence of a printing press.
See how the elders lived.
Yeah.
Only 5 gold pieces. Wow, that's a lot.
Only.
To attend a few hours in the old peace and quiet.
So you see these kind of things. It features this odd contraption. You know, these several gears set into different circles and things. And I think Furfa would recognize it. Maybe Ren would. If you want to give me, what's a good skill for that?
History?
History? Yeah,
Yeah.
give me a history. Give me a history.
Yeah, +6 on that, so let's see.
You got this. I
I-
believe in you.
I'm gonna actually add my modifier to the roll and roll 20 this time.
13 and 19, so 13 plus 6 is math. What is that, 19? Yeah.
19.
19.
So 16. Okay. So yeah, you guys definitely recognize it as what is called like an astrolabe. So it is an old, for us it's old. For them it's kind of, it's a relatively rare contraption. You know about it from books, but it's not really used in practice anymore. Might be because people have just kind of lost that knowledge. And it's for navigating and telling time at sea. And so it's all these different gears kind of set into each other to do that things. But yeah. So you recognize it and you're like, hey, this is an older technology. Lud might recognize it just because, he might be like, oh yeah, I remember these things. And Verfa might just know about it from his travels around.
This city doesn't have a port, correct?
No, it does not. It's in the middle of mountains,
That's what I
valleys.
thought. So I'm just gonna look at Verfa quizzically. Like, where the hell did they get one of those?
Oh, they trade, don't they?
I mean, sure, but what use do they have for it here?
Well, you gotta go back to the golden age.
Yeah, the golden age.
Golden age.
Is there never mind. Scratch that. In the interest of time.
We'll go for it. Just say it.
I was gonna investigate the illustration to see if it was indicating a particular place or time.
It doesn't. It kind of
Okay.
looks like it's just a rough illustration.
Yeah.
But I forgot to put it on the poster. But it does say where it is. It says it lays in the old ruins of the Church of Terranval. And it shows kind of where it's pretty much it's right there on the thing, and that's what it looks like. You can kind
Got
of
a
see it
thing for
on,
old churches.
it's got a thing for old churches, and it's on. You can kind of see it's on the crest, a little bit above the town. It sits just a little bit above the town, and it looks like it's in a dilapidated state. From where you're standing, you can see some broken glass that are reflecting odd in the sun. But you do also see that there's some drapery on it. Someone has maybe zhuzhed it up a little bit. So
This looks like a scam to me.
tourist trap. So
Jarl, is this the sort of thing that Carl would have any interest in?
I don't. He was never a very nostalgic sort. Uh, yeah, unless he thought he could make a buck off it, and uh, it's hard for me to imagine. But you never know if it's the only game in town. If he was bored, he might have stopped in.
So you guys are kind of looking at this poster and just kind of gazing and stuff. You kind of hear some old men, some old men kind of laugh and kind of they seem like they're looking at you, and one of them kind of goes, "Ha! Well, you want to know about the old times? You get much more from listening uh to one of us old men than looking at broken bits of metal and wood." And he's
Stone.
just stone. He's just this old. He's kind of one of the old guys. Um, he's kind of hunched over. He looks like he's worked for most of his life, and is now just kind of sitting on a barrel with a few other folks, just drinking a flagon of ale.
Hmm.
If you wish to talk to him, you may.
Good opportunity to see if they've seen Carl, I suppose.
What are they wearing?
Yeah, but
Anything significant?
I'm probably not the one to
Yeah.
take
Do we
the
have
lead on this.
do we have any indication? Like, do they just look like commoners, or are they wearing any sort of
They
I'm, go ahead.
they look pretty much like commoners. He might be in. He's in a little bit more of tattered. It looks like he hasn't been able to fix his clothes or make his or buy new clothes in a while, so his threads are a little bit bare, and he's got some fraying edges on his sleeves and all that kind of stuff. But he's just wearing a brown woolen coat, pretty much
Mhm.
a tunic.
Does one of them seem more in charge?
The guy who talked to you kind of seemed like the other people next to him kind of go, "Oh, that's just like leave it alone." And the main guy kind of is still looking at you, kind of expectantly, like he has something to say, sort of feeling. Whereas the other guys have kind of put their heads down and gone back to talking amongst themselves. What would you like to do?
Oh, I suppose Fairfield would be willing to walk up to him and say, it sounds like you have something to tell us.
I'll switch myself to Aura Sight so I can provide some insight checks should we need them.
Okay. Because something to say, of course, of course. You know, few folks don't have places to go, I guess. Most people come in the town, they last, and then they leave. I've been in this town for the last 30 years. I moved here in from the fields when my father tended to. Got me an apprenticeship, and now I sit here all day waiting for an order at my carpentry business. As you can see, not many people are in need of a carpenter. But, ah, this town is, if you wish to know, this town is named Raska. And was a great burgeoning town. Many, you can see there's so many buildings, but they have all left for the capital. And what is left in this town will fall to ruins eventually. Not quite the same since the old days.
Just for the DM, I will ask, what's your name, Carpenter?
Oh, you can just call me. You can just call me Rob. Just good old. My Cynthia used to call me Bob, but only she would do that. Only she.
Yeah.
We-
I mean, hmm. Yeah, I'm Verifa's interested to know whether this, was ever a mining town.
Okay.
So we can get it. I mean, I can just ask him,
Go for it.
Was this ever a mining town
Oh well,
in her heyday?
there was our fair share of trade with miners. There was a few, little bits and a few mines to the south. Um, but most of our metal came from merchants. We were mostly a thriving merchant and farming town. My father used to tend to fields, and his father before that, and I stopped because I went into the city and leaving it to my brothers. But oh, it used to be land routes used to be so profitable back in the day, and then they just weren't. Uh, they were not enough houses or boarding houses to put roofs over everyone's head, and then after the big shattering or whatever, it's just dried all up, and people don't people don't come through here very much anymore. They're all off in the east in Jamalja, which is the capital.
What sorts of carpentry did you do
Oh
in
well,
your day?
well, I framed houses, and well, there was a big boom for building. So, me and my master, we built, that house, and he starts to point out, like, oh, I built that pub over there, and I helped build that one, and oh well, I built a stable back at my dad's house, and like, he starts pointing out these things, and he's very excited to be talked to.
Any work on the old church?
Oh, that old church. Well, some. I think I helped retruss some of the roof. Some of it was falling down, and when this circus act came into town with these, golden age bits and bobs or whatever, I helped put the roof back on top of it so they could house their little assemblages. Best paycheck I ever got in the last, oh, 5 years. I don't know why I'm starting to a southern accent. It's fine. But,
What else do you know of this Golden Age show?
well, I just know that not much. They had to. They gussied up the place and putting up these draperies and making sure they had a nice spot for all their bits and bobs. And I don't think it's worth the gold, but certainly a lot of merchants who want to know about the golden age
I
pay
see.
for it. And they employ, a few dozen people, and it's a nice spot for the older folks to tell their stories. I don't have many impressive stories from back in the day. I just am a carpenter.
I see. Yeah, my party here and we're not entirely sure it's the sort of thing we have interest in, but maybe another form of which is sorry. All of a sudden it sounded like I was asking for prostitutes. If we
Go on, Verfa.
no, another form of recreation. Maybe if we could, did you have an arena or some sort of that sort of entertainment?
Oh, Marina, eh? Oh, well, we used to have horse racing. That stopped. Well,
Did
come to
it?
think, he's like thinking about it. He kind of thinks about it. He's like, well, I mean, there could have been some pickup fights over in the town square south of here, but we don't really have any fighting men anymore. And the rest of the old men's kind of chuckle. And they're like, we don't have any fighting stock left anymore. All of them young folks went off to where the jobs were off to win the money win, and well, we older folks stayed behind, just kind of waiting out the last of our days, I suppose. You know, those little monsters came after the earthquakes and wiped out the fields, and then everything flooded, and that further wiped out the fields, and then, well, now we're just kind of stuck here.
Kind of monsters.
Oh, well, some of them were little, like, let's telling us tales like goblins, and some of them were, big ones like beasts, like eagles, giant monstrosities that, haven't
Mm.
been seen around these parts in hundreds of years. And it was scary, and there was many many people taken too young. My sweet Cynthia got taken by those monsters out in the fields, and well, I guess you could say we blamed everyone but ourselves. We don't. I mean, we didn't do anything. We're just common folks. We're just carpenters. Maybe it was the warlocks or the artificers or the wizards. Some people blamed Turnval, that church where this circus hocus pocus is going on, and burned it to the ground. We did. It's just, there's no answers for us. Uh, we're just too old to go looking for them.
Looking for the monsters, you mean?
Oh, for the answers to why everything happened to
Oh,
us. Why people stopped going on the roads, stopped coming, everyone moving to the capital, and we don't like change. We just want to sit here and do our thing, and well, that's gonna come to an end soon. And then this town will just be dust and bones and scrap until someone sets a fire to
is
it.
that a request?
Oh, maybe. All the old men kind of chuckle, like, yeah, we'll just burn it to the ground.
Who keeps the monsters out? Repelling a griffin is no small task. Hey, who keeps the monsters out? Repelling a griffin is no small task.
well, there's most of the griffins kind of, well, the griffins or the rocks or the monsters or whatever kind of don't come near us anymore. Our cattle stores are pretty depleted, and well, we don't got enough farmland for them to eat, so they just kind of moved on to greener pastures, so to speak, as did the humans. Yeah. This guy seems a little bit drunk and he's a little bit tired. He's just kind of like waxing on and on. He's just happy to have someone to talk to.
Jarl, did your ears perk up for the potential for a fight of some kind at the town square?
You're muted.
Like you're muted.
Must have missed that. I heard something about they had horse racing, right? And they had this circus come in here with all this ancient artifacts. I wonder how long ago that was. What did I miss about the town square?
He said that if you were looking for a fight, they don't have an arena per se, but that maybe there were some pickup fights or that sort of thing at the town square.
Ah, I see.
Mhm.
Yeah. Well, if it's nothing organized, I'm less hopeful, but it's certainly worth checking out.
Especially,
But
especially since not everybody around here seems to have disposable income to gamble away. But I mean, if people
Right.
are willing to pay
Right.
5 gold to go to the Golden Age experience, hard telling.
Mhm.
I guess that's bored merchants must be their demographic,
Yeah.
you know.
Smells like a
But why
front to
was this
me.
place ever an attraction in the first place?
What's that, Luke?
So it smells like a
Are-
front to me.
Are you asking the old man why this place was ever an attraction in the first place?
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
you see, you must have seen the town gate and the big. This is used to be one of the major overland trading routes to Jamal, and then also down into the other little places down, and we used to get a lot of
Oh,
traffic from the Sultanate coming over. It was a big merchant town, all sorts of people coming in.
so not so much a destination in itself for any reason as it was benefiting
Hmm.
from being between
Yeah,
one
and
place and another. I get you.
he also kind of has alluded to the fact that it's a bunch of had a lot of farmland, so they also contributed to the trade of having X surplus food. Um, but now you know that the overland routes kind of broke up part because of all the monsters,
Mhm.
and so
When did these I want to ask, when did the golden age, you know, Jarl just interrupts. He has almost no social graces. When does for at least above ground, when do these golden age
oh,
sorts move in here?
kind of looks at it and is like, well, I gotta be about maybe I want to say 5 years, maybe 5 years to go.
5 years. Okay, it's been here for a while.
Yeah.
Hmm.
But
Don't know
it's
if it
been
sees much. Don't know if it sees much traffic, but
Hmm.
Eh.
So they've been,
Yeah.
the city collapses. You know, Rob, I'm just trying to get the timeline straight in my head. I got a thing for history, you know. So,
Close.
the city is sort of on we have the shattering. The city's sort of on the collapse because the trade routes are overrun by monsters. And that goes on for 20, 25 years. And then this golden age experience comes in.
I suppose. I'm not.
Interesting.
Uh,
Well, Shattering was 20 years ago, so it was like
Sure.
15 years after the Shattering. These guys.
they were saying and bringing up all sorts of huffing and puffing about they've been on this journey to recover the past and picking up these bits and bobs, and some of them are like this big, like just little tiny pieces, and they go, oh, it's history, and I don't know about that, but it had a letter on it or something. I don't. I just used a hammer and put wood together. That's what I did. So I have
Good.
never had the 5 gold to go there myself, but the guy
These
who
are
did it seemed very excited about it.
these artifacts you're talking about. Are these made of stone?
Are they made of stone? um, he goes, well, I think some of them might have been. Some of them were wood, and some of them were some sort of metal, maybe casted metal. Some of them seemed like they were made out of gold, or brass. Uh, I can't tell them apart, gold and brass. One's more expensive, I know that. I imagine versus like, how can you not know the
Yeah, yeah.
difference?
You know, Firpa's gears are turning a little bit, and in my head, I'm thinking maybe we should pay the way for this guy to go in and do the golden age thing on his own while we go off and investigate the possible fighting ring. Anyway,
I don't know. We'll talk
yeah.
privately. We'll talk privately later.
So he kind of
Oh,
gets up from where he's like sitting and gets up and goes, well, anything else you wanted to talk about or ask about or?
well, can we give you a little coin to buy your next drink on us?
Oh, be much appreciated.
Is that by way of thank you?
Yeah, of course. And I'll.
So,
I'm.
like 5 silver pieces,
Oh yeah.
would that
Oh
probably
yeah.
do it
5 silver
around
pieces.
here?
Just fine.
All right, I'll give him five
He
silver
kind of
pieces from
smiles
mine.
and puts. He's like, most money I've made all week. Thank you, sir. And you can find me at this little inn. And he kind of points down the road, and it doesn't have a name on it or anything, but it looks like it has a little porch, a little awning area for people to sit under it. It's kind of a
Ooh,
ripped up awning, but it looks like it used to have it used to be nice. Um,
nice. All
put a
right.
little like some tables. He goes, I'm there almost every night, and he kind of like jabs his other friends, and they all laugh. Functioning alcoholics. But they're just like, oh, we go there every night and play some dice. So if you need anything else,
It's at this moment when talk of drink happens that we hear kind of a stirring
From the baby
and
groin.
from Balgar. Yeah,
and then immediately
right.
like
Right. Exactly.
Okay.
and he kind of goes like, you got a sick fellow there?
He's sleeping one off.
Ah, well, we all been there. So, you
Okay.
guys want to ask about anything or anything? He can.
Well, I would just, say, yeah, that thank you for the information. Well, we may call on you later, either, as we continue on our journey, quest, whatever word, careful to use, and then, and if nothing else, perhaps we'll join you for drinks.
Oh, very interesting. We don't get any small folks around here much anymore, but it's always a pleasure to see people coming and going. So, He kind of goes to small folks. But at this point, I feel like he's bent over from just being, old person that you see the people who are like almost 90 degrees bent over. He's kind of one of those people, so he's almost at your eye level, but it's because he's so hunched over. So
Right.
he gets up and he kind of, pats some of the guys' knees and goes, "Well, folks, I'll see you at the bar." And he kind of starts to shuffle off.
All right.
There you go.
Okay.
The other guys kind of go back to talk
Well,
amongst themselves. They didn't really care about you guys anyway.
so I don't know if we could, we huddle up a little bit here, right? Certainly eager to follow up on whatever path, whatever trail Carl might have left behind. But I gotta say, this whole this place, this golden age place, that sounds pretty suspicious to me. I don't understand
Yeah.
anything about how that
I
makes
mean,
sense.
we can jump in feet first, or we can ask around maybe about the posters, or if there's a ringleader that makes his or her way into town.
But
I say we just head right in. We don't have much to be scared of. Group like us. What do you think, Lude?
well, they're definitely trying to make some kind of money, but it's a question. There are two things that have got stuck in my head. One, why the hell pick some run downtown nobody's coming to have a tourist attraction in? And two, where the hell are they getting all these golden age artifacts? Because they're clearly shipping them in from somewhere. Both of those are expensive propositions.
Yeah.
It just doesn't make any sense. But I can't imagine that there's a burgeoning criminal industry in the outskirts, like 3 days away from the capital city. That just doesn't track either. It's very confusing.
And they employed dozens of people.
About a dozen.
Rob said a dozen people.
Still,
That's a lot of people.
Yeah.
Maybe Carl's branching out. Maybe he's got some racket going.
Hey, true. You never know.
Carl's been missing for like 20 years, like ever since the shattering, right? Or has he been missing?
Yeah.
Okay, I thought so.
So he had 15 years to get something going.
We were separated during the shattering. True.
To the
True.
church.
Well, hey, the more you talk about it, the more it could make sense. But I again, I don't see the money flow, right? I don't see where the money is coming from. I don't see who's paying 5 gold on anything like a regular basis to get into this place. But we can go check it out.
Alrighty.
Just wonder, and why a church? That's the other thing that bothers me. I mean, certainly it's like, a nice building. It's going to be more sturdy than some of the other ones. But, I mean, there are buildings here that are better maintained and more reasonable for a shop front. A church, I mean, that's hallowed ground. That's kind of bizarre.
Well,
I think before we
see, Lud, and Fairfield will hold forth about like the construction of churches in this style, based only on having seen the steeple and the buttress. Yeah, they have such and such a chambers, and integration into the community fabric, and yeah.
And Jarl is trying to follow, because he wants to sort of feel like he can connect with the fellow dwarf, but he basically understands nothing about what you're saying, and you can kind of see him trying to feign like he's nodding, but he's nodding at the wrong times, and, but I do think that before we head into this place, we should take a walk around it and see what we can find out. I mean, after all, we've got an expert right here. And he slaps Seraph on the back.
Alrighty.
Let's do that.
You're going to the church. And as you're kind of going through, you notice a lot of these are, somewhat stone, somewhat wood constructions, very Tudor aesthetic. But you see there are certain things that look like they were hotels or boarding houses, kind of repurposed as private homes. It looks like a lot of the bigger buildings are just kind of left in disrepair. There's no use for a big giant, town hall when there's nothing. Oh, there's a town hall still inhabited. But you're kind of walking through, you see a lot more of a lot more people just kind of hanging out on stoops. You're noticing that there's definitely a generational difference. What you can tell are locals are older, at least. They're in their 40s, maybe into their 50s. Most of them do look quite ragged, um, and there's some 20 to 30-year-olds, but they're wearing different clothes than the older people. So maybe they've come and they're wearing like newer clothes. Maybe they're coming to visit or something, or they're merchants. I'm just kind of getting the idea that this is where people are kind of have decided this is where they're just gonna stay. This is where they want to die, sort of thing. And getting to the church isn't that hard. The main street kind of feeds into the main town hall that has a town hall that looks in. It's just kind of a big wooden structure that looks in somewhat disrepair, but it still looks like there's some people going in and out. Some sort of regulatory body is there. And then across from it is this church that's kind of sat further atop on a hill. It's a little bit farther, maybe, but it's kind of across from the town hall. And it sits there. It looks like it, kind of like the picture I posted. Um, it's kind of got some shattered windows. A lot of like the nicer stained glass have kind of been just broken due to, weathering and some water seeping into the the frames that's not supposed to be there. Verfa can tell you all about it, about about the stone getting deteriorated and not being repaired and all that kind of stuff. And you do see evidence of some fire damage on the outside. Um, the old man kind of alluded to it, that people like blamed the gods and such. So it might be that some people took torches to the church, but you're not entirely sure. It's kind
Is
of
it
suspicious.
is there an indication that this is a church dedicated to a particular, god or pantheon or something that would be recognizable to us?
Everyone, you guys can give me kind of a religion check if you wish.
What's my modifier on that?
Not
9.
bad.
9.
All of
Yeah,
us?
sure. Anyone who wishes. 17. Might as well on your religion.
Ooh.
You still got 18. Okay.
Ho ho.
So you're kind of looking at this at the church, and you're noticing kind of carvings and symbols that would point towards like a god of like piety, a god of knowledge. Um, they look like from Verfa's, wandering about, I would presume he has come in contact with a lot of churches. Um, it looks similar, and also Lud. It looks very similar to other surface churches. Um, you don't. The name. I don't think that's actually. Yeah, the name Terranval kind of comes to mind. Like it's a very popular deity of knowledge and piety that's kind of plastered around. With your 18-year-old, though, what you've kind of noticed is there are symbols that are etched in that don't have to do anything with knowledge that you recognize from possibly the Underdark, being like, oh, hey, that symbol is different, and I recognize that symbol. Like you don't recognize any of the surface symbols. You're just like, wait, I know that, and I recognize these
And
things.
are they kind of tucked in the corners? Are they like minor kind of
Yeah,
symbols in this, or are they mixed in like
it looks
equal to
like
the rest?
some of them are mixed in. They look like they were purposely integrated so they weren't seen. Perhaps like hidden in some way. Um,
All right. So Jarl sees this and sort of walks up and sort of mutters out loud, because he's got a. This is not a very smart guy. He's got to kind of speak out loud as he. Well, look at that. I haven't seen that since I was in the Underdark. Why was do you all worship so and so up here? Like, is there that's news to me. So he's basically kind of in a kind of ignorant sort of way drawing everybody's attention
okay.
to the fact that these are
As
there.
you're kind of doing this, um, and you're also kind of looking at the symbols, and as you're kind of trying to get a better look at some things, you kind of push aside some of the drapery that they've put up, and you're kind of pushing it aside and looking at it. And as you're doing this, a gentleman comes out. He looks like, my cat just walked, yeah, yelled at me. This gentleman comes out. He looks like a standard proprietor sort of guy. He's in relatively nice clothes, not super brightly green or purples, but he has a nice, like, deep blue kind of suit on. That's different than a lot of the colors that you've seen. And he kind of sits there, he kind of adjusts. He goes, "Well, I see you've taken great interest in the architecture of the church. What can I do for you here? We here at at my lovely, what you could call an emporium, would love to have you in our halls for the cheap price of 5 gold pieces. The best tourist attraction in town, and all in this beautiful, beautiful church."
Can I do an insight check on him?
Yes, yes, you can.
Okay, because this is.
What are you trying to insight for him?
I'm trying to figure out if he's trying to. Basically, is his intention here to sell a ticket or to get Jarl to stop looking at the thing Jarl is looking at?
Sure, you could do that.
All right,
And
22.
Yeah, Fairfa is interested in whether he has, the
Your amulet or something?
no, well, yeah, I mean, he always wants to know that. No, the architectural credentials, or like the credentials that
This
he
guy?
claims to have. Yeah.
Are you an architect?
Yeah,
Do you
yeah.
like stonework?
Yeah.
So 22, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So with your 22, you could tell it's kind of both. Like, he wants to get those 15 gold pieces in his pocket and into the Emporium. But he also has noticed that you're moving the fabric aside to kind of investigate more, pointing out certain things. And he probably heard Jarl say, like, "Oh, well, that's interesting," and go, "Okay, well, let's get you guys out of the public face and get you into the building so people can stop hearing you," sort of thing. So it's definitely both. He's definitely like, "I would like money, but also could you stop talking?"
I will use my current telepathic link to verify and say, you should stall for a little bit, I think, if you can.
Sure. So what? Out loud, without thinking, he'll say, "Sure," and then he'll. And he'll start just like asking him the most like asinine questions about very particular, stonework, and even probably stuff that he knows the answer to. Like
Okay.
sometimes there's that kid in class that will ask a question just to prove they know the answer already.
And while that's happening, I think Jarl's just going to keep like walking around and lifting more draperies and trying. He hasn't encountered this stuff for 20 years. He's excited to see what more he can find. So he's just going to somewhat obliviously, just sort of walk around and
Sure.
move more things aside, see what he
Yeah.
can find,
And
Verfa,
and
give me kind
investigate
of
really.
a quick roll for performance or persuasion.
while this is going
Performance.
on, Ludvir's going to put his
Or
body
Verfa.
between. Ludvir's going to put his body between the guy's line of sight and Jarl, so Jarl can wander around the building without him being seen.
Okay.
So performance with 17.
17. Okay. Yeah, you're convincingly curious. You're like, "Oh, so I see these rocks are well carved." And he goes, "Oh, yes, yes. Well, they were carved at a quarry, about an hour from here, and one of this mountain of what is that mountain? Yeah, the mountain of Trask." You could tell he made up that name. And he goes, "And they're great limestone, carved very beautifully, yes." And so you just kind of go on, like, asking questions and like, "Here, lick this." Tell me what mineral this is.
While this is going on, if I'm looking around, given that this is, I don't want to beg for an advantage I don't deserve, but because it's Underdark related, would my
Sure.
investigation check have any advantage to it? Okay, let me do that. And then check. 17.
17. Alrighty. So you're kind of looking around, and you start to see kind of trying to find, but that's fine. So you're kind of finding, and you see there's. I'm not gonna give you the name of the god because I don't have it with me right now, but
Sure.
it seems like
Let's say it's
it's
unpronounceable
unpronounceable.
in
You recognize the
right.
name, but maybe it's like a drow name, and you're like, I don't know how to say that, but I recognize it. um, and you know it's a god, somewhat of like of chaos, of maybe war in
Mm.
some ways, and you're just like looking at, you can see there's maybe like a battle axe symbolized here, and a drow symbol kind of swirled into how like someone's hand. You can kind of like, oh well, that's a drow symbol. So as you're kind of walking around and getting a better look at like pulling these things up, you start to see more and more things about, a god of war, a god of chaos, kind of embedded in this church that is for seemingly a pious knowledge deity that you.
Wow. Okay, I'm gonna keep. I think I'm wise enough to keep that to myself for now. Uh, hmm. Interesting. I don't have a link with Lud at the moment, do I?
No,
I'm
I'm
gonna
still
try. I'm
learning.
gonna in my head. I'm gonna try and talk to Lud, but he won't even know I'm trying. I have no idea how
You're
these
just like,
work. Lud, are you there? Are you there, Lud? Lud?
So,
like he's looking around trying to find him in his head, get the switchboard connected.
Yeah, right.
so seeing Jarl sort of dead in his tracks, and thinking maybe probably that he is afraid of birds again or something. Uh,
Again,
yeah,
always.
Fairful will sort of break his distraction from the guy at the door and say, "Well, yeah, it sounds like an interesting opportunity, but I need to consult with my party to see, to situate our finances."
Oh, of course,
And then,
of course. We take in many traveling merchants, but we wouldn't want to take a share of your profits. Of course, of course.
Is that I'm gonna call from the back and say, is that 5 gold pieces a group rate?
Well, for 3 fine adventurers, maybe I could make the group rate, 12 gold pieces instead of 15.
I'm
Fine
gonna roll my
adventurers.
eyes
What
at
gives
that.
you that idea?
anyway, so yeah.
Jarl has a very obvious quarterstaff, and
Yeah, and I've got like 5 throwing hammers on my and a bandolier or whatever.
and Verfa is, not necessarily obviously an artificer, but he's not wearing normal merchant clothes.
Right.
So you can presume it's your
I forget that I'm the only one who wears normal clothes.
You're sitting there in street clothes, like, how could you say that? Oh, you guys need to get better costumes.
Oh, yeah, goddamn.
So, yeah, I'll gesture for the party to, join me out of earshot and
Okay.
produce a purse or something that we can pretend to be, okay, pretend we're talking about money. Okay, Jarl nod, and then, what's going on over there?
Yeah, and I'm gonna say, all right, so I'm seeing things I don't really understand. I mean, you tell me this is a church to some god of knowledge and piety and stuff that's like good, right? But you should know that like throughout all this symbol work on here, there's a pretty regular and pretty indisputable reference to this god I know from the Underdark, and it's like one of the Drow gods. It's all about chaos, war, instability, all of that kind of thing.
Oh,
Perhaps they want something to do with the grounds the church is on, then performing some kind of ritual. I don't know. My knowledge of the divine ends at the names of them,
my knowledge of the divine ends at
I
statues.
I don't know how churches work, but if that's been there since the beginning, then I bet there's an interesting history here. Let's just put it that way.
All right.
Verify. Shouldn't you be able to verify how old those carvings are?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll go give him the 12 gold and distract him for long enough that you can verify how old those additional signatures are.
I can do that.
And Haya and I can do a little bit of a made up argument real quick. 'Cause we're very good at that.
Ooh.
If you
Yeah.
want a real distraction, you know,
Yeah, you can
have a little dispute
arguing about
with
whose
each
gold we're
other.
going to spend or something like that.
Tell Balgear that he
Right.
won't get any alcohol for the next 3 weeks and he'll throw a right fit.
All right. So does the advantage of my air stats I just erase the disadvantage of exhaustion?
Yes.
Okay. So I will do a check for. Does it make sense to just do one check or to do a check for the knowledge piety god and the underdark god independently?
Just do one because you're just kind
All
of
right.
looking at the stonework to get the information about the stonework.
All right.
It's kind of like you're taking like when like painting restorers take their black light to see old retouching and things, just kind of generally seeing and looking at the art.
Okay. And then I don't remember which skill we're using. Perception, investigation, or history.
Investigation?
All right.
That seems like a one that would work.
Okay. With proficiency.
Let me know if DM. Let me know if you want me to
14.
roll anything from me and Haya. I can give him advantage
Um,
on a deception check or something.
Well, you're just doing like, sure, you can just give me like a little deception check or something, just to kind of argue over gold.
Yeah, I'm just going to do that with Haya's character sheet because Haya is very good at
Mhm.
deception.
And as they're doing that,
And
I'll
that was a 21.
Well, you
Yes.
don't need my help then.
Oh.
Yeah, he did very well.
Oh, that's why you
So-
stopped. I thought you just like were like, well, you're. Okay, cool.
So I got a dirty 20. So
Got a dirty
then
20.
yep. So while they're arguing and so forth, I will, maybe look up at the peak and, pretend to be counting stones or something. And as I'm doing that, I'm working my way around to the side of the church to look at, what Jarl said.
Sure. So that was a 21. You definitely have caught this proprietor's attention. He kind of looks. He kind of just chuckling to himself. You can see him. He kind of maybe like sees him like lean against the door and like cross his arms, like just kind of waiting, and maybe chuckling to himself. But as with the ersatz eye, um, you're kind of looking at these carvings, and from what you can tell, the the my brain just stopped. The carvings for Terranval look older than the stuff for the Drow god. However, they're not that disparate in age. Like if you look at the Terranval stuff, and it's about 100 years old. 100-year-old church, maybe 200. Trying to think of what churches. Yeah, like 100 years old. And then the Drow stuff looks like it's maybe like 90 or 85 years old. So they're decently close together. But they weren't put there at the same time. And it doesn't look. The Azarth side says that if it's magically made, right, or made
Yep.
with magic, the runes don't look like they were made with magic. They just kind of look like they're just carved in. So
Very good.
yeah.
All
Magic.
right. So he'll, work his way back over 332, 333, 334, 335. All right. And then, Jarl and Haya what are you guys doing? You know, that kind of break them up, you know, to clue them in that, you know, we're good.
He's saying he doesn't want to kick in his fair share because he's got no interest in this. Hyatt, how many times have I told you we're in this together?
You hear Bulgaria.
I know 12 doesn't divide by 5. I know that, but we can figure this out.
Bulgaria just like grumbles and he just doesn't want to go in anywhere. He just wants to sit here and barf. He's like, just let me die in peace.
Bulgaria, but what if they have golden age alcohol?
Well, and then Lud paid him already, didn't he?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so-
that's happened, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
It's
yeah.
about trying to collect, I guess, so that,
Right.
you know, Lud gets paid back.
Anyway,
So you've paid. You are going into said church.
Yeah, but
I suppose.
keeping an eye open because like Lud hasn't written off the possibility that they get merchants into their little area and then ambush them
Mhm.
Okay.
and steal
All right.
off everything they've got because that seems more likely than anything else at this point.
All right. So you kind of walk in, and let me drag you over to. Let me actually like. Yeah, you can see everything. I don't really care. That's fine. I didn't hide it, so there you go. So you kind of walk in, and you see this kind of weird, ghostly sort of feel. It definitely looks like the inside. Now that you've come in, there is no artwork or paintings on the wall. It definitely looks like it has been like maybe burned and painted over in the past. And the proprietor kind of comes in. And there's there's some tables set up with some information across this room. Move that just a little bit, maybe make it a little bigger. But all the columns that kind of go into these beautiful archways, and they're just all painted white. And the proprietor kind of shows you, and he goes, "Yes, they burned it burned the church a few about I think 15 years ago, and then we came in and we painted over the walls with so you couldn't see the soot. And a shame about the artwork, but we did the best we could. And you see the white kind of like drapery. That's kind of colored. It's just what the picture is. And there's all sorts of little bits and pieces set up on. There's actual stuff here, so you didn't get quite scammed out of your gold pieces. Whether it's worth it to you or not is another question. But there's tables set up, and some of them have like old pieces of what looks to be like really complex looms. They're kind of broken apart, not usable, but you can kind of identify because there's scraps of pieces of cloth. There's just deconstructed astrolabs, I think is how it's pronounced, and you can see the different discs aligned with different star charts and things. And then you also see you see typefacing or typesets, or little wooden and metal pieces that have numbers and letters on them. Some of them are Elvish, some of them are Dwarven. Most of them are the common alphabet. And there's just little bits and pieces. Some of them, they have. We're in desperate need of a scholar. There's a little oxen cart, like kind of.
He's going to just sort of walk around the space and just look to see if he sees anything more that, you know, in interior indications that
Okay.
match what he saw on the outside, you know. He's probably not going to be very subtle about it, but he's just going to sort of walk around, mostly look at the structure and the stuff that's been there for a long
Verfa
time.
is gonna look at the stuff, and he's visibly disappointed because in he's this sort of like I think was it last time that we said that he's an artificer, but he's basically the worst artificer that there has ever been because he's got this sort of like old school druidic idea about what artificery is doing and how it works, which may or may not be more accurate than this sort of mechanical thing.
Yeah.
And so he's disappointed to see that it's not his brand of artificery, right? It's not like rocks and mosses and like fungus growing, glowing, and speaking to each other. And it's it's all metal, and the
Yeah.
wood is okay, but um, you know.
So as you're so if you guys are looking around, there's also little pieces of really finely made jewelry that doesn't that looks a little bit off, like it's just kind of like there to be pretty, that you can look at. Um, what does
That's more my
Lud
style.
what does Lud think about this kind of stuff?
Mainly, like, maybe I should roll like a perception check here. What is like looking for the tear in the, like, there was something this guy didn't want us to see. We know that much. So he's looking around the room trying to figure out what's out of place.
Okay, sure. If you guys want to all give me perception checks
Oh
for
dear.
your various things.
All
And so
right.
as you're kind of looking around, the proprietor is kind of going on. He's like, and you can see that we, and he's talking about these looms and these beautiful fabrics that they used to be able to create, much more highly detailed and colorful than we have today. And look at this beautiful textile, and he like shows this nice textile. And he's like, and you can see these typefaces, and he kind of is just pushing you on a tour of all of his things, and they are kind of bits and bobs, like the carpenter had said, pieces like these. They have like the typeface, but there's not an actual full printer press. Um, but there's he goes like, oh, this was the frame of some sort of printing device, and you can see that this is you put you put these bits in, and you can make a sentence with them and stuff. And he's kind of showing you. He doesn't know necessarily what he's talking about. This guy's a human. He's probably like 20 to 30 range, so 10 when the shattering happened, and then maybe he made it his life goal to go collect these things. Oh, excuse me. And he's kind of like showing you these things. He's not very knowledgeable. He goes, well, and we can see I have these old tomes here, and he kind of picks up, and they look like they're kind of instructional manuals in some way. And he kind of goes like, and you can see like they used to do this, and and you can see this textile, and he's just kind of pushing you through this tour, and he's very excited that you're here. And then you see a few other people milling like standing by exhibits, but they're just kind of standing there. They're not really doing anything. Um, it seems like they're mostly there to help with maybe preservation or keeping up just the overall area.
They're
They're
docents.
docents, yeah. So 18, 19.
Verfa is too
Uh,
distracted by his disappointment. He only got 9.
a 9. So Verfo, maybe you're starting to actually get distracted by what he's saying because you're like pulled into his history. You're like, oh, I mean, okay, you like passionately talking, and he's passionately talking, so you're just like, oh, I'll listen to you. Um, and so like you kind of get perked up with the tomes and the jewelry, and you're looking around. But you don't really see anything of interest. For Lud also doesn't really see much in the way of like, oh, is there a spot that's open? Is there a secret passage or something? Um, you maybe notice that some of these objects looks to be like thought recreations, like they recreated what they thought was this old loom. Um, or you might notice that there's some people that are um, some people moving in and out of spaces that you can't go, but they look like little like storage areas. Maybe they're bringing out tablecloth or something. Oh, hello, hello, kitty. Um, with that 20 or 19 perception, there is you kind of notice that he's moving you around this area, and as you're looking around and looking at these pillars and things, unfortunately, a lot of the stuff that was on the walls has been lost. Like if there is paintings and stuff, and he mentions, there was some semblance of paintings over here, and it depicted this and depicted that, and you kind of listen, but a lot of the paintings don't seem to be relevant. Um, but there's a few passageways and doors that look like they are closed to the public that from the outside exist. Like you as when you're walking around looking for things, you notice that there was a spot behind the altar that is closed off for visitors that he kind of steers you away from.
Mhm.
There also looks like there's a spot that goes down, like a staircase that seems to be either covered up with like a flooring or something, because on the outside you notice that there was some like skylight for a cellar. But it's kind
I'll
of what you're
use my
seeing.
telepathic link to ask Verfa, would a church in this construction style have catacombs?
I would assume so, but DM?
Um, it's a good question to ask the proprietor. But you would think that being the cathedral in town that there would be catacombs, or at least a sizable cemetery, which you didn't see outside, so you would presume that there are catacombs.
Yeah. So Verfa will say, having established some rapport, hey, proprietor man. I'm assuming as the cathedral of this region that there would be catacombs below. Is that the case?
Why, yes, there are catacombs, but you understand with the fire that was set here and the overall, years of degrading, they're not safe for visitors, so we don't open them up. But they're there. We just don't want people going down there and getting lost. Of course, you understand things. And now, if you look over here,
We are
there's
not your typical visitors.
Why,
I happen to be a sort of expert in stonework. Perhaps we could go down and assess the situation, and we know a very skilled carpenter. Perhaps you've heard of him. His name is Rob. He might have some experience constructing buttresses, that sort of thing, to help stabilize it. I mean, catacombs could be an excellent draw for the what am I trying to say? Tourist operation you're trying to run here. We would, of course, do this assessment free of charge. No liability on you.
you kind of think, roll me a persuasion.
I knew you were going to say that. I wasn't persuasive. All right, 9 and 12. So 9 plus.
I'll give you an extra.
Oh, -1. What's that?
I'll give you like a +2 because you're being convincing. So you get a +1. So you get 10.
10. Middle of the road.
Middle of the road. I'm just gonna roll. Can I do? Can you guys see if I rolled something?
No.
Oh,
I
good.
didn't see anything.
Nope.
I know how to make them hidden now. Sweet. So you kind of say this, and he kind of goes, "Well, well, you see, we don't want anyone getting harmed here. Could be bad on our reputation, and while we're working to also secure the catacombs, like you said, it's be good for business, getting more attractions in here. We have so much knowledge here of the technology from before the calamity, the shattering, the happening, whatever you wish to call it. And well, we could have the catacombs to show how luxurious this place was beforehand, and that'd be a great idea. But we have people working on that, and we don't need your guys' help. It's okay, we're fine. So very.
I don't know.
Are your radiators popping, Ren? That's what it kind of sounds like.
No, that is not. I don't have any radiator in this room, thank God.
It just sounds like they're popping. Oh, that's probably your mic stand reverberating. That's what it is. But anyway,
Sorry.
so that is what he
Part
said.
of Verfa is just resisting, just casting Ray of Sickness on the guy and like making a run for it.
You have dysentery now. I'm leaving.
Yeah.
So does Jarl? Oh, Yeah. Does Jarl overhear any of this?
Probably. I presume that he's kind of roughly kept you together, whether it's just, he sees someone moves off and he goes, "Oh, I'll follow you," and like everyone expects everyone else, so he's kind of hovering about. So the group's probably pretty close together.
I'm going to step over and try and see if we can get a second bite at the apple here and sort of say, well, yeah, as another dwarf here, I really have to chime in and say, you might need some real expertise to get down there and take a look at the structure of this place. Somebody who really knows their stone, like we do. I think you could have some. You may have. I'm sure you have your own expert people in what they do, of course. But as far as the real long-term investment that you're making in this place, right, with the structure and all the rest, I think you'd be well served to
No.
have it looked at by
And
real experts.
Fairfield will chime in with his usual, like, yeah, I mean, like I said, if you got your buttresses here, and if there's any sort of relationship between that and the catacombs, these churches aren't built to last forever. I mean, even though they are.
So, what do you say, DM? Does that get us
Sure, roll
anything?
with advantage on your persuasion.
Can I roll with my
Yeah.
persuasion? Stepping up, and so I'm going to do that, and I'm going to be ready to spend a commanding presence die too if I need it. So 23.
23.
And if it looks like he's at all in doubt, I'm going to roll a. In fact, I'll just do it. I'm going to spend a superiority die and roll a
Sure.
d8 to add to that, just for extra.
Okay, I have to read this. I will get back to you in just a moment.
Sure. So that becomes a 28.
Ooh. Okay. All right, I read that. I understand it. Okay. So you got 20 on your persuasion.
No, 23 and then plus 5 for
Okay, yeah.
28.
So you got 28. Okay. Yeah, so you say this, and you're backing up Verfa and going like, "Oh, stonework and things," and he goes, "Well, I suppose it might be a good idea, as long as I'm down there with you, of course, and could open up some part of the catacombs. They're not necessarily like citywide, but they're quite large. I believe this area was made 90 years ago, so there's plenty of, so that's 70 years of service to the greater population, and burials and things. So yes, I suppose indeed that'll be okay. He kind of gestures over someone. He kind of goes like, "Oh, just a lady," and she goes, "Oh, Ginger, can you watch the front door if anyone comes in, get them to pay?" And I walk them through some of the exhibits, of course. And Ginger nods. And goes, "Okay, well, great. Well, I suppose we could go down there right now if you have nothing else to do. Nothing else to do
Do
if
it.
you wish."
Jarl gives Verfa a wink and be like, did I look like an above ground dwarf there? Sort of. He's not going to say that out loud, but that's the.
And
Yeah,
Fairfield will offer up whatever this world's version of a high five is.
What is a dwarven high five? Is it an actual high five, or is it just kind of like a nod, like, huh?
Yeah. You
Oh,
slap beard braids against each other.
oh. But yeah, so he kind of gestures you to move towards like these catacombs, and kind of goes like, "Oh, they haven't been open in quite a while," and he seems a little nervous. And when he opens the catacombs, it doesn't seem like they're actually that well shut. Um, so yeah, and so he kind of opens. It's on the side of this area. Kind of he goes through a doorway, and then kind of pulls up some boards, and there's some rickety stairs that go down into the catacombs.
So, rolling might get interesting here, but so Fairfa is going to try to communicate an idea to Jarl by, and at the same time try to schmooze the proprietor a little bit and say, Jarl, I'm surprised that this proprietor, whose name I don't know, can manage all of this, this he's got people down here assessing this tunnel. He's running this a brilliant museum upstairs, doing, it's probably staying up very late nights doing research. I mean, it must just be exhausting. I mean, he might just, want to just fall down and take a long nap at any given moment.
I'm definitely catching on, do a lot of the kind of, it's part of the cons that we do. And I'm like, yeah, if I were someone like him, I would certainly, I'd collapse at the end of the day, if not before.
I couldn't do it.
Are you trying to cast sleep on someone?
I don't have it, but I'm trying to indicate to him that, we need to get him off our back by incapacitating him in some.
Fair enough.
The sign of a great leader, though, is delegation. I'm sure he's probably a great leader, a great manager of his people, and I'm sure he knows when to delegate things to those that really know what they're doing, so that he can recoup a little bit of that energy that he would otherwise just sort of spend every.
So anyway,
at this point is like, I'm flattered. He's a little confused.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't realize you could hear us.
He might be coming up from behind you or something.
Just impressed by your operation, really, and by your dedication. I think it speaks well of you that you were interested in having some real dwarven experts come down and take a look at the foundations of what is, after all, your life.
And then, Fairfield will take that opportunity to make up some sort of, so, and it's a good thing we're down here, too. I mean, I think your guys probably missed this, 48, and then, some made-up measurement.
And I'm gonna help him on if he has to make any kind of check. I'm just gonna be doing things like grab a little light hammer and just like tap with the butt end of it, and just shake my head. Yeah.
Okay. You go into these catacombs, and they are, they're not like the French catacombs or the Parisian catacombs where they're like miles and miles, but they're rather. Did I get a message? Okay, cat. You can't eat the frosting. I know it's on my desk, and I put you on the desk, but you can't eat it. I have cake remnants. So you go into the catacombs and you're doing this. You're like tinking around and doing things. How do you want to incapacitate him, or what do you want?
So, actually, maybe as part of this whole, if in Verfa's relaying of, maybe he does find some sort of actual, structural. So maybe I'll do an investigation to make sure that I can find some part that'll fall. Using my stone tools for proficiency to poke at things, and ultimately, I would send everybody else. You guys go, check out this, because I guess I'm kind of taking the lead on this stone investigation. And kind of get people separated, and then if there's some sort of like support strut or something, as he's saying, well, if you don't watch out, you're gonna have a 48-ton P.E.K.K.A. shield collapse, like whatever, and maybe whack something with a, be picking at something and then whack something with an elbow or something that to try to close off the hallway, so that we're on one side and he's on the other side.
Oh, I understand now. Okay, so now I have to think about what you need to roll for that.
Yeah. Unless while I'm thinking this through, Lud has another idea, since he's in my brain.
I'd like to think that Lud right now is looking for any other entrances to the catacombs, because as we move through them, access points outside of the church, things we might be able to use if we need to get back down here for some reason.
Yeah.
You two
So-
seem to have everything else going just fine.
So roll me an investigation.
To find
and
the
I'll
weak spot.
I'll give you your stonework bonus, whatever your stonework bonus is.
What is that?
I don't
Stone
know.
cunning. It's a rarely used trait, isn't it?
Yes.
I think it's just proficiency with Mason's tools.
Okay.
So it would be some attribute modifier plus the
Right.
proficiency bonus.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and stone cunning is a history check, so that doesn't apply.
Wisdom
Yeah.
or-
Okay.
So investigation would be intelligence. So plus 4 plus 2 plus 11, 17.
17. Okay. So you do 17. So you definitely, as you're walking through these catacombs, you notice that they're not, the substrate of this area isn't necessarily hard packed. Like there's some limestone, but there's also some like gypsum mixed into it. And you're just sitting here like, okay, well, this area is a little bit crumbly. And okay, so I can kind of get, you looking at the supports and everything. And you're like, okay, well, if I kind of like motion to Jarl to kind of like shoulder tackle, and then I kind of like poke at it, I can get some sort of rock to fall on him to maybe knock him out or something. Not necessarily like a total tunnel collapse,
Right.
but just enough to kind of, knock him a little bit woozy.
Yeah. I'm imagining the in the old Bugs Bunny cartoons where they had the two mobsters and he put the guy in the oven and he's like, if my buddy was in the oven, would I turn it on like this? Would I throw a lit match in there like this? It's like that sort of
Oh
you know,
yeah.
anyway, that sort of level of trickery.
And I'm certainly ready to help with. I've got a bunch of different moves, right? As a battle master, I could trip, right? I could push. I've got Crusher if I need to adjust where he's at. I could. There's a bunch of things that would allow me to maybe, help. Look out, and I go to like knock the thing away from him, but actually I kind of whack him in the back of the head, and he ends up, something like that. But boy, that rock hit you pretty hard right there.
Yeah, so
I couldn't stop all of them. I'm sorry.
And maybe Verify isn't even being subtle about it. He's like, if this stone and this stone, this is all, this is patchwork. If this came out and this came out at the same time, it would just be a disaster in here. I mean, that rock would fall and hit somebody in the head.
Mm-hmm.
To sort of help us coordinate as a group.
Yeah. So you do that.
Louvier's ears perk up, and I'm like, I could grab that rock and pull it down on him.
Perfect.
So everyone does this.
Sorry, we're not making it easy.
I presume that all of you hit. So whatever Jarl is doing, like this is like quarterstaff to kind of just like bonk, and Lud's magical thing to do rock falling damage. Okay, what's falling damage?
Let me check the PDF
height.
for this because it says in here
And
how that
then-
works. Master
So-
Force.
I'm gonna give you you hit him because he's distracted enough by falling rocks. So what's that kind of the damage that like Jarl's quarterstaff does when you're kind of like doing your moves? And
If it's the butt end, it's just D4 plus my strength modifier.
Okay.
How heavy would you
But
say this rock is?
Non-lethal.
I don't know. If it's a piece of limestone, like. Hey Eli, a boulder about this big, how heavy it is if it's like limestone? Like 20 pounds? Like this big.
Limestone weighs approximately 150 pounds per cubic foot.
500
Whoa.
pounds? Okay, so like 500 pounds. Eli got about the same amount. Apparently.
Oof, I can't move that.
Okay.
That's a no.
Well, you can move either smaller rocks that you can move. I didn't realize limestone was that dense.
Yeah, me either.
Today we learned mineral. You keep bringing minerals into this campaign, and I enjoy it.
Yeah. It's what is that word? Anyway, doesn't matter. It just worked out that way.
But there's probably like whatever you can move, lead. It's fine. You can just
Pull a 25-pound chunk down on him.
Yeah, I mean a 25-pound chunk landing on someone's head, it's gonna knock them out. So
Cool. It does 2d6 bludgeoning damage, by the way.
Non-lethal.
Non-lethal.
And if he's about to move out of the way, you know, I'm saying a look out, and I'm making sure he moves
Right.
back,
okay.
sort of right under it. I'll use Crusher to make sure that it
I'm
hits
just gonna give it to
square. You know.
You guys orchestrated this. You're like kind of like, okay, we're gonna do this, we're gonna do that, and yeah. So I imagine what's happening. So Verfa is, pointing out and kind of like plunking at the gypsum, be like, look how soft this stone is, and you can see you have this wooden support, and if you whack it, and he whacks it just right to get some boulders loose, it does that, and as and 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 Jarl's in the back going, oh yeah, you can see that, like kind of like pushing him forward or tripping to him to go forward, and the guy's like tries to lean back, and then he can push forward, and then maybe he's tall enough to just barely hit the wood, and then there's a rock, and he just kind of goes, and then he just falls over. Does anyone catch him?
Chim?
Haya, I
Okay,
bet Haya
maybe he
would
just falls
catch him.
on Haya, and he's like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Balger barfs on him a little bit.
I feel like Belgier just belches. Like, I presume that Haya and Belgier just are like often in the back, and they're just like sitting there like, what? Why are we here?
The belch
yes.
smell is like what finally does him in. With
So yeah, that's what happens. And
Alright.
he just kind of falls down.
Do you suppose
And he just kind of
would now?
yeah.
Sorry, I was just going to say, would now be a good time for a quick break before we see what happens?
Sure.
Yeah.
I'm gonna finish.
And then we can tie him up and press on.
Time up this on.
Do we want to tie him up? I mean, or do we want him to just be like, wow,
Right.
we could leave him a note saying, clearly
There you
it's
go.
too dangerous for you to go forward. We're sorry this happened to you. We
Yeah.
promise to
Or just
report back
leave
with
him by
whatever
like
we
the
find,
stairs, like nicely, and kind of
Yeah.
you there.
Right, with a little, a little water skin by him, and
I like
be
that.
like, it's dangerous down here.
Yeah.
You better leave it to the professionals.
Maybe Lud can put up some sort of barrier.
You couldn't you make a little message on something like I've seen you do there,
sure.
Verifa, right? Some little worded message so that he would see it, on the wineskin or something. He picks it up.
Consolation prize.
Yeah.
All right.
All right.
Okay.
So we'll do a little come back at like 3, like a 4-minute quick grab stuff, or maybe like a 10-minute. 3 or 6.
Sounds good to me. Be right back.
BRB.
Yeah.
Hello.
Hello, hello. Well, this is exciting. Feels like a dungeon crawl.
Yeah.
Yeah, it really feels like we're getting somewhere. Oh, man. And like with 90-year-old drow runes? Ancient evil?
maybe Carl's down here.
Yeah, right.
That would almost be too easy.
I mean, that depends on what's down there with him.
It's true.
Well, I'm hopeful that I can make this work this fall. If we go back to Friday afternoons, I think it becomes more possible. I don't know if that works with everybody, but I'm teaching Tuesdays and Thursdays, so.
I think things are getting easier for Fridays for me over the course of the semester. 2 part-time jobs really just it's hard.
Where are your jobs, Ren?
So one thing I'm doing is I'm working with the War Memorial on like events planning stuff, and the other thing is running some escape rooms in town.
Gotcha.
Escape room is a lot more fun and a lot more useful because I get to get paid to watch people play games for hours at a time. People are so interesting when they're locked in a room and they have to make choices together.
I mean, it'd be great for someone to do
I was gonna say, get IRB.
do an ethnographic research project of that, man.
Yeah,
That'd be pretty cool.
Yeah, I'd love to at some point. I mused a couple times to people about at some point getting funding to like go to different escape rooms and document what designers think of the rooms that they've built. They have interesting conceptions about how people play. For instance, the general assumption is that people will not read anything you put in the room.
Yeah. When I write my whodunits, the general assumption is that the characters won't read their characters.
Yeah, this reminds me of one of my favorite stories from Jill, which is, goes to show how different academics can be from everybody else, or certainly who she is compared to everybody else. She was living in San Francisco for a while, and she didn't really have a job. She was making a little extra money and doing some, stuff for like testing, right, where you go in and some product testing type stuff. And she got, invited through the place she signed up to come in for one of these. She comes in for one of these, and this guy, puts this, I can't remember what kind of piece of technology it was, and it's got the manual and everything in front of her. And it's like, all right, can you show me how you would go about making use of this? And she immediately picks up this, 30 some page instruction manual and just starts reading it, like cover to cover. And he's like observing, and they're kind of wrapping up. And he's at the end of it, she was still writing her dissertation at the time. At the end of it, he just says, I'm not supposed to do this, but I can't help but ask, like, what do you do? She's like, oh, I'm a PhD student. It's like, okay, you've never seen anybody do that before.
I love it. Yeah, I definitely would not have done that. I don't read the instructions for anything.
Yeah, I don't tend to either, frankly. I think it's more about her maybe than about the academic she is. But she is like, she's like the classic library researcher. She wants to have read every word before she says anything.
This is the last manual I read.
When we're learning board games, I'm kind of one of the people that reads setup, and then I set the game up, and then I do it based that way. I'm like, okay, let's set the game up, and then we can figure out, okay, like we have these cards. What do we need to do with cards? Okay, like do it that way. Whereas Eli is one of those people that will sit there and read you the manual line by line, and that's how he does it. And my uncle does that too. And I'm sitting here, I'm like, I want to touch game and do game. I don't want to read manual.
I'm one of those weird people that sits down and plays the game first as 3 people.
Oh, really?
To figure it out, because then I feel
Gosh,
like I've had the experience to tell people what to do.
All right. Well, I'm eager to get underground here. What's going on?
All right. I'm eating cucumbers. Just delicious cucumbers.
While you're eating, I'll show you. To eat my own dog food for my wife's campaign, I got Kaplow makes 30-sided letter dice,
Ooh.
as well as a crossword puzzle game, which is 6-sided letter dice. And so when I'm asked for somebody's name, I'll just roll them. I have 4 of the big ones and like 6
that's
of the little
pretty
ones.
good. Oh,
And
yeah.
then just whatever the closest thing to a name that comes up. You know, no rules to use all of them or anything, but you know.
I like it. I like it.
It's fantastic.
As a fun fact, the church you see pictured here is a church in Lubeck that is actually a Lutheran church that, like many places in Germany, was a Catholic church that was converted into a Lutheran church over time. But Lubeck was firebombed, and so all of their churches were burned pretty much. And so this church just opted to paint over it. And it's just this
Wow.
white Catholic cathedral. It is so spooky to be in there. You're just like, this is supposed to be a big Catholic cathedral because the outside is a Catholic cathedral and the inside is just painted white.
Wow.
There's other ones, but this one is really cool. I was like, this is the specific picture I wanted, and I had to go find it. I think it does a good job. It is very weird.
Is there like an acoustic purpose to the like sails they have?
I would think so, because when I went in there, there's no pews.
Yeah.
So I figured that because there's nothing for any sound to bounce off of, or to be reverberated or deadened, I guess is the better way of saying it, deadened. So I think that's why. I don't actually know. It was just on. It was that's one of the big churches. That one, and then St. Mary's is the other one, or St. Marian, I believe. And that one has a church bell embedded in the floor because the rafters melted and the bell fell from the bell tower. And they just left it in the ground. It's really neat. It's really cool.
Prove a
Anyway.
point. No.
Anyway, back on track. You're in the catacombs. I don't have any pictures of the catacombs, so it'll be a nice journey of the mind.
Yeah. It's too bad we don't have Matthew to draw it. I was going to say Bulgar, but I guess Matthew is the one that is actually doing the drawing.
I can't wait to work the logistics out of us both sitting in the same room to do DNDMs. That's going to be fun.
Or we're just going to be all together doing a session.
That's true. That's true.
I would really like that.
Okay.
I don't know this number. Oh, is 53 that might be. I'm getting a call from an 855 number. It might be Microsoft sign in, but who cares? So you're in the catacombs. They're well trussed, so they're built decently, but they're still, hand carved, as always, kind of rough, and they're made as needed. So as you're kind of making your way through catacombs, like there'll be a random offshoot that way, and then you look down, it's a dead end, and then you'll come to where they've branched off 2 ways, and doesn't look like there's any real planning of the catacombs. It really is just kind of a winding mess of
like an ant tunnel.
Like an ant tunnel. Yeah, kind of.
You hear Jarl just breathe a huge sigh of relief. happy as could be, just sort of bouncing along and tapping his hammer against the sides like a kid.
So, and yeah, Jarl is this is not the same sort of rocky substrate that you would be in if you were in the Underdark.
Right.
I believe the Underdark is more like bedrock, hard rock. This kind of softer rock that sometimes when you bonk the rock with your quarterstaff, some of it comes off, and you're like, oh, maybe I shouldn't do that. But I'm going to continue to do this.
I also do really want to be on the lookout. I feel like I'm, given what I saw with this, symbols of Malik or wherever that god was, like I'm on the lookout for anything down here that indicates maybe there's a path to the Underdark down here or something like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Or some
and every
treasure.
every few feet or so, Fairfa is going to be using the mason's tools and whatever other tools he can scrounge, and be picking at the floor a little bit to look for any kind of hatch, and rapping on the walls to see if maybe there's a movable stone that might have something behind it, that sort of thing. more or less cautious, but actually probably less cautious than he normally would be.
And Levere will
everyone give
watch around them
me-
to make sure that nobody's coming.
Oh, this is a hard one. Everyone give me nature?
Nature.
Nature? Maybe to figure out, to map it out in your brain, like figure out where you have been and where you haven't been. And I
Sure.
think nature works with that. There's not really a street.
That's usually a survival. Is that, well, above ground? Maybe it'd be survival. I don't know. It'd be about down here. Nature, yeah.
Nature.
Oof.
16. Unless being in stonework gives me any kind of bonus, but
Hey, dirty 20.
Yeah, during 20. Oh, you never got a 1.
hmm
So, Jarl, I think you're so distracted by the fact that you're underground and you're with your stones and there's some skeletons, but who cares? We're underground.
I keep imagining it's the Underdark, but of course, like you were saying before, this is not really the same thing. So I'm
Yeah. You're just you're daydreaming. You've kind of let yourself daydream back to the good old days of you and Carl, and what's gonna happen when we reunite? We can go back to the Underdark, even though most of it's flooded. We're gonna go back there, and it's gonna be great.
Oh, I'll roll for Hyatt too here. Hold on.
hmm
I got a 16.
Okay. Gotta check what is my YouTube doing? I'm gonna loop that so it doesn't leave. So, with your 20, what did Verfa get?
16.
16? Okay, so yeah. So you guys relatively stay on track. You don't get lost in the catacombs. Congratulations. Jarl might be daydreaming to the point and he turns off to go somewhere and Haya grabs him and turns him back to make sure he doesn't wander off from the group. But everyone pretty much knows roughly where you're going, or not roughly where you don't know where you're going, but you've known where you've been. Maybe you leave some breadcrumbs or Lude leaves some ball bearings to kind of indicate where you guys have and haven't been. And as you're going, you notice you come across some really, really well off crypts. And as you kind of get deeper in the catacombs, there was a straight line, and then you maybe did a turn, and you got to a point you're following a relatively made at the same time tunnel, and you get to kind of the richer areas where there's some old bishops, or I don't know if they would have bishops, but old priests are there, and there's some more wealthier patrons. This it turns into this crypt, pretty much, from common folks, and then it turns into a crypt. It looks like it has another entrance as well. So the crypts are connected to the catacombs and vice versa. And in the crypt, you're looking at the crypt. The crypt has about, I don't know, I'm trying to think if it's a big crypt, 20 feet. It's stacked 3 tall. So maybe there's 20 or 30 coffins, stone coffins that contain all sorts of different things. And reading the glyphs, reading glyphs, reading what is carved in, you can be okay, well, this used to be a priest, and that used to be a priest, and he used to be a nobleman. It looks like you kind of get the idea that there was a lot of wealth in this town, and some of the stone coffins are prettier than the other ones, are well done, but overall still pretty. They're in a crypt. They don't have their own tomb. They weren't a king or something. And everyone give me a perception check in this crypt.
Oh boy.
There's a good perception roll.
I rolled a 1
Oh boy.
on one of my 2 dice.
All right.
I got an 8.
Okay. All right. I'm writing some notes to myself.
So I suppose
I'm
I'm
just-
paying so much attention to what's around us at any given moment. I haven't been really paying attention to our path, but
Yeah.
I'm certainly aware.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm overtaken by the craftsmanship on the
Yeah.
not
Like-
caskets, coffins.
With Lud's Lud's obsession with wood for a little bit, you kind of
Still there.
hyperfixate on this one coffin. Just has this really nice filigree, and it looks like it was painted at some point. And you're just sitting there like, that's a nice stone coffin. Like you're just looking
Yeah.
at it. With Lud's 14, you get the sense that this room is too big for what's in it. Like there's a decent amount of coffins in this area, but it looks like it's somewhat at actually Jarl probably notices this as maybe faster and better. Um, there's coffins lining the walls, but the area of the crypt itself, it seems like it's at capacity for how many coffins are there, but it's still a huge room. Like there's this really wide open space in the center of it that looks like it could be utilized. Like you could fit like 20 more coffins on the floor, but they chose not to do that. So the floor was definitely left open for some reason. And as
Dance
you're kind
party.
of a dance party, dance with the dead. Um, and as Jarl's kind
Boingo
of
Boingo, Dead Man's Party, one of the great songs.
so maybe Jarl's like using his quarterstaff to kind of tap at some of the tiling, because the floor is finished. It's the crypt, so there's some tiling, there's some nice chiseled columns and things, and you're kind of tapping at the stone floor, and you start to notice that there seems to be some sort of pattern or the on this floor that looks like it's you're looking at it, it looks weird. It definitely doesn't look like just tiled floor. Um, you can start to see scratches in the brickwork of some sort of like circle, and there seems to be some glyphs. You can't quite make them out, but it definitely looks like there's something scratched in. And as you're looking around, and Lud probably notices this too, this place is very clean. And it looks like it's been rebuttressed, and it looks like it's been fixed. It looks like this room could have been in use, yesterday. Um,
The
and
wood on those buttresses hasn't taken in any moisture. It's crazy.
you're like, look at those trusses. Maybe Rob had something to do with this.
So, so if I follow some of these scratches on the floor with my fingers,
Mhm.
does it feel like there might be a pattern here? It's just really hard to see with them being scratches,
Um,
or is it just use?
it looks like um, so this is like a limestone brickwork sort of thing, and someone has a pencil or something, and they're scratching. It looks like a repeated use scratch mark. Like
Aha!
they're making a circle or these specific scratch marks over and over again, either with probably with a charcoal pencil or like a piece
But
of
it's slowly it's
charcoal.
left its traces in the.
Hmm.
True
I'm
attention
gonna
dealing.
I'm gonna draw Verifa over to this and have him investigate this further.
And he'll finish. He's probably been, really focused on a carving that's new to him on one of the, coffins, and he's finishing
Verifa,
scribbling it in a little notebook,
Verifa,
You're,
Yeah,
do- you're
Verifa,
doing like a rubbing, like yeah, okay,
yeah, yeah.
what?
Verifa.
And so he'll be like, what? You're thinking that there's another Periton or
Another
something in
cool
here.
little, or yeah, right.
Oh yeah,
Oh,
or thinking that it's another.
yeah, another cooler coffin, right, with a
Yeah,
cooler detail. And I'm just like staring at a patch in the floor. You got to look at this.
yeah. And
So I'm gonna,
he'll lay down flat with his face, you know, to the ground to
and
get.
I'll trace out the ones I see, and like somebody's been drawing something in here pretty regularly, and it looks like it's wearing down the stone. But that's your department.
Yeah. And so what I'll do is I've got some chalk in my pack, and I'll scrape it on a file to make some chalk powder and huff it over the surface, and then brush it really lightly to try to fill in the cracks so we can see what was drawn, to.
Okay. So you're kind of trying to get. So as you do this, let's see, and let's roll dice. See how well it does. That was a terrible roll. I'll give you a second roll. That's a better roll. Okay. You got a 1 on a d30. But you're kind of doing this graphite thing. I really like this idea of filling in these cracks with graphite and kind of getting the dust all settled. And as you do this, you kind of reveal this I kind of want to say it looks like alchemy, but kind of this strange pattern that you don't really recognize as an artificer or as a battle master. But Lud looks at it and he kind of recognizes it. It looks like some sort of arcane ritual, like a ritualistic spell to do something. Lud recognizes it, but he doesn't know what it is.
Is it
And none
visible?
of you guys. What? Go ahead.
Is it visible enough for me to make out the particular symbols, or is it still just too vague?
The particular symbols are like they're a little bit too small, so when you're, constantly scratching them in, there's enough slight variance that you can get a rough shape of them, but you can't tell exactly what it is. So
It's some sort of sigil.
some sort of sigil or ritualistic thing. And it definitely looks. It is not something that would be at home in a place of piety and worship and knowledge. And the sigils, they look, the different symbols look to be, demonic, or some of them might look elvish because of spell script. But you get the feeling that this has to do with something perhaps necrotic, or something to do, like it's a very powerful, it's something that Lud would recognize from a previous master. So someone
Is it
well versed in magic and illicit magic, maybe.
Is anything of it primordial?
Can I ask a question, DM?
Yes, you can.
So, as one of my racial feats, as you know, allows me to recall knowledge from the past by adding a d6 to an otherwise normal check, could I make an Arcana roll to see if I've seen this before with that extra d6?
Sure.
Awesome.
It doesn't look like any of it is primal. So.
No genies here.
No
yet.
genies yet.
So that's gonna be, let's see what we get. Ooh, 24.
Ooh, 24. That's good. That's good.
Man, I never get to use that feature. I'm so glad I got to use it again.
So you recognize my brain just went somewhere that I could take it, but I'm not going to do that. So you do recognize this sigil. It seems like it's some base of other rituals. So it's not, you're not going to get the exact answer, unfortunately, but you do recognize it as something to do with planes and not planes. Just, I'm trying to decide if I want to. I'm thinking. I'm pretty sure it has to do something with bringing back the dead. Some necrotic skills or necrotic spells or a healing spell, like that's technically a necrotic spell. So something to do with the dead, bringing them back, communing with them, something like that. Maybe it's something to do with soul crafting. You don't know.
Does this
Turning them into a robot army.
does this seem amateur? Like this person thought that the base was all they needed for the spell?
It definitely looks different than how you remember seeing it. You can kind of point to certain places where, so if you have a circle and you need to connect certain things, certain symbols to make the spell go, the certain shape that they use to connect the symbols don't match up. So instead of like a hexagon, it's like a pentagon or something like that. So you notice there's some amateurish vibes to it. Like maybe that's why it's constantly scratched in because they're practicing. But
Some experimentation.
I will
maybe
pull
some
out
experimenting.
a piece of paper and I will lay it down on the ground and I will pull out my pen. And as another chance to use one of my stupid traits that I have never gotten to use before, I will begin to draw a pictogram of how this spell is supposed to look onto the piece of paper. And let's be like, no, they've got it all wrong. It's got to be this shape and with these lines, and I think this goes here and here.
You're just sitting there doing that.
I can do right tool for the job and give you forgers. What is it? Forgers kit tool, whatever. I can help you do that.
Oh,
in
I
case
would
there's a roll
appreciate some
coming.
help.
Oh, I see what you're doing.
Yeah. Whatever charcoal or
My brain
you
was trying
need.
to find the word necromancy, but I couldn't think of it until just now. That's why I just kept saying necrotic. I'm like, it's that.
Vera, how old is this inlay?
Well, if I use the AirSats eye, it's only going to tell us about the floor, not the thing that's etched into
Oh,
it.
fair.
That is true. Because it's just etched in.
Yeah. So
So-
he'll look at it and tell you, the exact age of the floor, but it's not
The
useful
floor,
to us.
the floor is about, 80-ish years old, so it seems like they built it relatively soon after they built the cathedral. And I guess I actually have no idea how they made cathedrals, catacombs. Like, did they dig them in like mines? I presume they did.
This one is.
I presume, yeah, this one is, but like, because like tunnels in the old days, they would dig out a large trench and then make the buttresses and then they would put all the stone back in, or the dirt. Now that's going to send me on a rabbit hole of how they made catacombs. Oh, bringing back dead
I'll look
community.
it up. Seems like
Or-
something Fairfish should know.
Okay, I have notes. Okay. So, how are you communicating? How are you communicating your pictographs?
Oh, I have a piece of paper and an ink pen from my backpack that I'm using.
Okay.
Yeah, I wouldn't dare pull out any chalk and draw this onto the floor. Then I might, accidentally cause the spell to fire.
And Fairfish is going to hand you a colored candle, a red wax candle, and point out that colored wax works much better than ink in doing rubbings.
I'm not trying to do a rubbing here. If you'd like to do a rubbing, you can. I'm simply drawing from memory.
Oh, I see what you're saying. I gotcha. Never mind. I thought you were doing a rubbing.
No, but that is a good idea.
Yeah. So how long would you guys say that you're spending in this crypt kind of looking around?
It sounds to me like something like half hour or 40 minutes or something like that.
Yeah, okay. Hit a bug. All right. So after we're doing this, and after you get after you get your drawing done, after Lug gets his drawing done, and you guys are kind of sitting around looking like this place is weird. You kind of hear some soft calling. It sounds like it's the proprietor kind of going like,
Damn it.
Are you guys okay?" Like you kind of hear like he's calling down the halls. He's not he as you're kind of sitting there like, do we respond? His calls get a little bit closer, like he's walking around the catacombs trying to find you. And what would you like to do?
Well, there are 12 people up top, and none of them are skilled enough mages to pull this off. And I'll show you the pictogram. I think we're doing pretty all right here.
I think I have a funny feeling. I don't want to play Haya's character for him, but I do have a funny feeling that Haya, with his high charisma and his shape-changing ability, might decide to change into someone else, walk to the entrance, um, and tell him to, go away or something like that. But I don't know. What do we all think about that? I don't want to play Haya's character for him, but that occurs to me, something he would do.
We have
Yeah.
seen Ginger.
Right.
And Rob.
Rob. I don't.
Rob.
Not employed.
Robulus.
I think it
Yeah.
would be. I don't think it would be out of the realm of his character. There is an extra entrance to the catacombs. If like you're planning, like, oh, just kind of call down the hall and say everything's okay, go away, or something,
Mhm.
or if you want to call from the staircase, maybe, or something.
Yeah.
Or our other option is to make it, say, oh, don't come any further. There was another collapse. That.
Yeah, you could also do that.
Or we could confront
do
him.
Do we know that there's? Was he truthful when he said that there were, Masons down here doing an assessment that we could, pass ourselves off as them versus ourselves?
As you're, I don't know, when you were walking around, you got a decent perception score. You probably saw. There's nothing in the crypt of that it was surveyed, but you know that it has been retrussed. So you think maybe, and based on where you are in the catacombs, you feel like this crypt is kind of right underneath the main church building, the main church chapel area. So it would make sense that they would retruss it so the floor didn't cave in.
I think maybe what I'll do is Jarl will just sort of stride right out of this room, walking toward his voice,
Okay.
and say, "Oh, sir, you really shouldn't be up and around. I mean, after getting hit on the head like that." And I'm going to try and just show enormous concern and care, and don't worry about us. We're doing just fine down here, but I'm really worried about you. If you're going to be wandering around, you're not going to have the kind of quick reactions you need to be able to navigate a place like this. We should get you back up into the main room.
Okay. All right. And then I'll give you advantage on that. That's convincing.
All right,
Slash, you
persuasion.
can have like high up also there. Someone also there to be like, oh, yeah.
Okay, so let me get back over here. Persuasion with advantage, and I'm prepared to spend another commanding presence die if I need it. Let's see. So that's a 19, and I think, yeah, I'm gonna spend again. I don't know why I feel nervous today, but I'm gonna spend one of the. That gets me to 21.
Okay. Yeah, he just kind of he believes you. He goes, okay, that makes sense. Could you? I think I can
Let me
get away.
walk you out.
Okay.
Let me walk you out. I really I just wouldn't feel right
Yeah.
if you tried to do this by yourself. You poor thing. And you're under so much stress. Really, you've taken on so much here. It's amazing to see. I mean, I'm not going to lie, but I just feel like as a new friend of yours that I want to help you put some limits on yourself here.
Without a healer in our party, we wouldn't want to be responsible for.
He kind of like nods and goes like, okay, yeah. Did you have you seen any other potential break-ins? Collapsing
Oh,
floors?
we've got a list. Let me tell you, we've got a list. There's a lot of places down here that would really need some attention. We're doing an initial survey at this point. That we don't have the full definitive breakdown, but you got to start with the big picture. You understand?
Oh,
So that's what we're doing now. And I'm just going to keep walking them back, and I'm going to say, are you sure that you're only the people that you've approved have come down here, right? No one else has access to this place. I just want, again, this is a safety concern. If you have any idea that anyone else is making use of the area down here, I think it'd be really important to be aware of that, and maybe to take some steps to secure it further.
Well, I don't. Besides from the people, I don't really think so. I don't come here down here very much. Myself. There's
Mm.
a few other people. And then
And
well, we
and
had some people down here to trust some stuff, but that's
okay,
about
yeah.
it.
How long ago was that? Because we
Oh,
did see
about
some work. I'm gonna say it was a little questionable, but it looked relatively new.
probably I think it was a year after we got the place.
Hmm.
We finally went
Hmm.
down to the catacombs. So yeah, like four, or maybe 3.5, 4 years ago, maybe.
I see. I see. And the group that you have working down there now, about how many people is that? We need to
Uh,
know this for load purposes, right? If
for load
you never
purposes.
know, and one path crosses another. Load is a very important consideration.
uh, do you mean up here or down?
No, how many people? What's the size of the group that you have doing any work in the catacombs?
Well, I think we have one or two people. There's not a lot of stonemasons in town anymore, so.
Oh, so it's just one or two coming down. I see. All right. Well, we'll factor that in. If we're not dealing with any kind of crowds, because again, that would be dangerous.
Mm-hmm. Of
And
course.
I would like to sort of see, do I get any sense that he is not being entirely truthful with me?
If you want to roll some insight, sure.
I will do that. Not my best thing, but I'll try. Oh, that should only be one of those.
Well,
Oh,
I always take the one that's on the left.
good. All right, good.
So,
18.
it's 18. All right. So yeah, he seems a little bit woozy, so you kind of be like, I don't know how well he can lie while he's woozy.
Right.
Um, but yeah, seems like he's telling the relative truth that there's truth to there's only one or two people working down there. You get the feeling that he might have been trying to probe around and see how far you've gotten into the catacombs, but very unsuccessfully.
All right.
uh,
And I'm going to ask him, how's your head doing? You have a bit of a headache there? How are you?
yeah, he goes, oh yeah, I got a headache here. I
I'm
just
going to
need.
get out my flask of fire whiskey and say, here, have a nip of that. That'll take a bit of the edge off.
Alrighty. What are the other guys doing?
I want to ask if I know what components an individual would need to pull this ritual off.
That you do not know.
Okay. Do I get
I
the
have a
sense that
feeling
there were
with
components involved?
you get the feeling that there was probably components involved. Um, like your recollection of the ritual circle itself, you remember there being like things hanging around, but you don't remember you don't know. Like, 'cause you probably saw it in like a wizard's tower, and a
Mm-hmm.
wizard's tower has all sorts of components in it already.
Mm-hmm.
So you're like, I presume that there was components needed, but because we were like, my memory does not tell me what these components were because we were in a wizard's tower.
Yeah, and I'm guessing I don't see anything that looks particularly like expended components in the area.
Not that you can see. It seems like this place is kept pretty clean. Um, so if there was spell components, they'd probably get swept away along with the rest of the circle.
Hmm. Verifa, it only makes sense to me. Maybe this is just getting stranger by the minute. I just don't understand why anyone would want to resurrect a bunch of dead things in the middle of bumfuck nowhere.
I mean, I can think of a few reasons.
Wouldn't it be easier for these people to simply steal all the royalties off of these and desecrate these corpses and then move on?
I mean, unless they were trying to build some sort of a undead army.
Undead army. I mean, I guess, but
You haven't actually looked in the tomb, so you don't know if they're
Yeah.
desecrated or not.
oh, that's a good point, DM.
I mean, look at it this way, Lud. If you were trying to do anything with the dead, a crypt is a perfect place to do it.
I agree. I mean, I guess if you didn't want to arouse suspicion from the authorities, then doing it out in the middle of nowhere would make some sense. We should check the crypts out, though, you know? And you're probably the expert on that one. I'll help you lift them up.
Sure. So are these are these mausoleum style in the wall, or are they, on the around the perimeter of the room, or?
I imagine they're kind of like, I'm thinking like not Temple of Doom, where they're going to find the Holy Grail, and they're in that crypt below the library, and
Right.
there's coffins on the wall, kind of like on stone shelves. That's what it kind of looks like.
All right. So, yeah, so Fairfield will pick one that maybe looks the oldest, assuming that the stone, oldest, you said it's like 100 years or something, so it's not like it's really going to be that different. But yeah, maybe an old one where, the symbols are maybe a little bit more recognizable.
Okay. Do you want to grab like a priest or a noble?
Let's do a noble.
Okay. I heard a cat.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you grab one of those out. It kind of, as you kind of reef it and pull it out, maybe you get Haya to help you, and it kind of, you pull it off the shelf and it kind of just like slides onto the ground with a nice thud. And when you open it, it's a noble, and you can
Or
tell,
what's left of him.
or what's
Sorry.
left of them. You can tell from the scraps of fabric, because this area is, it's relatively moist. It's not flooded by any means, but it definitely is damp. So the clothing has rotted a little bit. But you can tell they're very fine silk. They're very colorful. They're way more colorful than anything that you've seen. You're like, wow, that is a shade of chartreuse that I haven't seen in a long time. um, and you can see that they still have some valuables on them, like they have some rings on them. The necklace is still intact, but as you kind of look at it, it seems like it's been somewhat disturbed. You're not sure what is missing, but you can tell there was something laying at its side that is no longer there. Um,
Is it?
Go ahead.
Is there any dust or like particulate in there that would give it just? Is there any indication that this corpse has moved or been removed and put back? That sort of.
It looks a little bit like, um, it definitely looks like the coffin has been jostled. So where the hands were nicely like folded like this, now they're kind of like broken and like cracked like that, or like the neck is like kind of snapped, where in his original placement it would have been upright. It doesn't look like the whole body has been moved, but it definitely looks like someone has moved this coffin out and moved it back maybe a few times, or once or twice. And there's definitely there's particulates that are settled on the body and dust, but the spot where there was something laying next to him, whether that was a sword or a quarterstaff or like a poster tube, you don't know, is not there, and you can tell because there was a depression, as well as there's no dust underneath where that spot is.
All right. I think so. First thing I want to do is check the. So you said this was like on kind of a shelf on the wall.
Yeah, it's kind of like there's a shelf and then another shelf and then a shelf. There's a little bit
Okay.
of a lip for the first one.
Sure. So I would like to check the wall that is behind where the coffin was. If the coffin was removed and put back, in the event that there was any sort of door there.
So as you look at the wall, behind it, you do see some further like inscriptions behind there, and they don't really look like anything you've seen before. Actually, now give me a investigation. Yeah, sure, investigation or stonework or
Well, if it's a history check for stonework, then I can use stone cunning. But if it's a straight investigation, then I don't think I can.
Yeah. Just give me investigation.
All
It'll
right.
be fine. And Lud, if Lud's also there, he can give me investigation. And if Jarl has come back, he can also do investigation. Everyone can do
Well,
16.
yeah, you let me know when I've come back. As I'm basically wanting to get him up the stairs, and then I'm hightailing it back down.
Okay.
But in the remainder of my time conversing with him, I wanted to find out if they, surely you've done some survey of the catacombs, right? And perhaps have a map or something that we could really use as the basis for our work. If he doesn't, then I'm just going to let him go.
He says he doesn't, but you feel like he might, and he just doesn't want to give it to you.
All right. Then I'm going to make an intimidation check, and I'm going to say, sir, I strongly encourage you to be honest with us. I mean, our safety is at stake, and we're doing this for you as a way to help your business. So I would hate to think that you wouldn't take our health and safety seriously enough to provide us with whatever information you may have about the layout of those catacombs. Try and intimidate him.
Okay. So roll that up for me real quick.
Let's see. I can add a superiority die to that. 15.
15. Okay. So let me get. Oh, he rolled well. So he kind of goes like, I understand that, but you have to believe me that, we only have. It's not a complete map. It's kind of spotty at best. And I think it would be best if you made your own maps. You've been getting through the catacombs very well. You'll be just fine. And so he's definitely.
All right. Okay, I'll see him off. I'm a little worried about my compatriots. I'm gonna hightail it back to the big room.
All right, so you do that, and as you're getting back, they've pulled. I think at this point, like they've pulled a coffin out and like looked at the dude and went, "Okay, he's not a zombie, sweet," and then moved on to looking at the back wall.
All right, I'll come over and join them.
Okay, so Lud got an 8. What did
Mine
Verfa
was
get? Oh, you got a natural 1.
Mm-hmm.
Well then.
Oh, cat appearance.
What'd you say? Investigation.
Yeah.
16.
16, and then you can also roll investigation.
I can.
Girl. Yep. Yep.
Not my best thing.
Hey, dude.
Yeah.
You're just gonna lay down there like a felon? Yeah. I found this foam D20 that I've been throwing around for my cat, and he's been like playing fetch with it. Like he'll go and grab it and bring it back to me.
So he's a critter.
That was bad. So
That was bad.
I've been trying to work in a pro bono work since we started opening the coffins.
So everyone's kind of looking at this. There's something on the back wall, and you're kind of investigating. Maybe Verfa makes a stone, like a light stone, so he can kind of get a better look at it instead of it just being in dim light. And Lud and Jarl don't really get anything. They're just kind of looking at these scribblings. But Verfa kind of gets a good picture, like a good sense of what is going on. And there's some carvings that you can tell, and they're in weird Elvish. They're in Elvish script that doesn't read like Elvish. Does Verfa know Elvish, by the way?
No.
No. Well, okay. So it's in like spell script Elvish, like very old Elvish. And as you're kind of looking at it, you instead of matching up the script of the two things, you recognize the stone is very similar to the stone that the tablet was made out of.
I was gonna say, I think this wasn't the tablet in this weirdo Elvish that Jarl had some
familiarity with.
Yeah.
Yep. If I could see it better, maybe I could. Now that you've made that connection, I might be able to recognize.
So Fairfield will point that out to Jarl and hold his light stone up to it and say, "Hey, isn't this that same script that you had a flavor for before?"
And it is, and the tablet was kind of on like a charred piece of stone, and this area is also similarly like a charred like piece of stone sort of thing. So and it's hidden, so you're like, okay, this is kind of weird. But when Jarl gets a look at this script, it does look like it's the same script as the tablet that you found. But this looks like it's more. It looks kind of like. It doesn't read well to you. Like it doesn't look like an elvish sentence or an undercommon sentence. It really just kind of looks like a bunch of random nouns put together. So maybe it's some sort of spell. It just doesn't make grammatical sense to you. But you're like, okay, but if you maybe like translate a few words to Lud might be like, oh well, that's might be a spell that they're just putting these words together to make a spell, like firewood, like set this wood together.
Right. A linking together of the. Yeah, so I'm basically going to share whatever ones I can translate, share the impression I have of it. This doesn't look like a sentence to me. It's just a string of words, for stuff.
Can I try rolling
the shopping
Arcana
list?
check? Oh my god. Yeah, an ancient grocery store list.
An ancient grocery store list. In the bottom of a crypt behind a coffin.
You need salt.
Did you want to make a check, Lid? Is that what
I'd love
heard?
to make an Arcana check.
Make an Arcana check.
15.
Woohoo.
15. Okay. So 15. So you get the sense that this is probably some form of like incantation. They don't look like super powerful incantations like what the tablet says. So where the tablet kind of made insinuations that it was like a much grandiose spell, this is just fireball or like magic missile, like very simple sort of incantation spell from what you can tell, because they're like short spell words and they're very simple, like compound, like fireball throw sort of parsing together of that
Engage
sort of thing.
And I've just come down here. I'm going to ask Verify. Wait, is this old like the rest of it, or is it newer? The writing.
and I'll close my eye and
I feel
find
like
out.
what Verfa does is he can't wink at all, so he just like puts a hand over his eye.
Yeah.
It's like, eh.
Yeah.
So do that and give me whatever you need to do for like stone cunning and stuff. So
All right.
do your history
So
pluses and extra bits.
yeah, so with proficiency, which undoes my plus perception 23.
23. So with that 23, you're looking at this box and hit this box. No, these kind of tablets, and you notice from just your understanding, it's kind of a blackened clay. So similar, it's the same material as a tablet. So it's this hardened black clay, and it is much older than anything around it. It looks like it might have. It's not connected to the wall, so you can take it out if you want to. And
Wow.
it looks to be as old as the tablet, which was like several hundred years old, I think. So
Yarl, you're not going to believe this.
Yeah, what?
It's the same as the tablet.
Ugh.
That's
Okay. All right. More of this. More of those wizards showing up. Maybe we should watch our 6 for sure.
So, okay, I think I'm starting to maybe understand what's going on here. Think this through. All
We
right.
have to take all of the coffins off the walls.
Well, obviously, yes, we're gonna have to search this place completely. But think about this: a troop comes into town 5 years ago, right? They say they're going to set up a shop in a church, and they're gonna run a tourist trap. All right. Now, maybe the guy who's leading it is actually genuine. He's just into old artifacts. That's entirely possible. But
He's a rube.
well, he does seem to be a rube. But what if this is a front for someone else who is investigating the tablet seriously? They located this church, then they come back and set up shop, and then they stay here attempting to try and find whatever information they need in this place. It would make some sense. It doesn't explain the weird resurrection sigil on the ground, but it would make sense if they had somehow managed to figure out that this church was connected to the tablet, or the writing in it was, and at some point decided, well, we need to have a division of people here to make sure that, we can uncover the secrets.
Well, what's interesting to me is that this, I smell what you're stepping in, bud. That this stone in the wall is directly beneath a collection of artifacts. And the tablet at the palace was amongst a collection of artifacts. Something with the thing, something's happening here.
Yeah.
I'm getting a sense that there's a piece missing from something. And like you're saying is that this is the collection, the museum side of the collection is a byproduct of them looking for the piece they need for whatever thing that they're doing with the thing.
It just, well, the thing that doesn't make the last piece of the puzzle that is stopping me from thinking that that's all that's going on, other than the resurrection sigil, is why stay here for so damn long?
Because this is the only place they can talk to somebody. Talk to somebody powerful. Somebody. That's what I bet that's about. And I sort of point at the symbol. We got our fair share of cultists underground. When they find a spot where they can have conversations with whatever weird, supernatural, super powerful thing that they want to do the bidding of, well, they tend to stay there. That's my guess.
I want to open more coffins.
Yeah, we should stick around. I mean, the other thing is that, we can't stay here forever, but is there any way we could get permanent access to these catacombs, do you think?
We got this box, but I don't know how to use it.
Should we take a look and see if there's anything behind this tablet? If it's removable?
Bad idea.
Sure.
An idea. Also, what if I went to Rob and paid him 50 gold coins or something, and asked him to source us some wood and stone so that we could have an excuse to stay here if we need to for several days, saying we're doing repairs? I bet they would buy that, but they might ask us to have an escort come with us, at which point then Haya could pretend to be the escort.
Right. I think it's a good plan.
Yeah, obviously we want to say that the repairs that we're doing is somewhere other than this particular room, right? Because people be looking for this room. So, maybe it's further down, and we pretend we haven't even seen this room.
Hey, one thing we could do is we could pick a spot closer to the stairs, and Haya and I could be there behind some big, tarp or whatever. And every now and then, a different one of us is walking out from behind the tarp. It's really Haya, but it looks like all of us are working there, right?
Good idea. Well, maybe we can figure all this out fast enough that it won't be necessary. But if we do need to stay here for multiple days, that's probably our best bet, other than breaking
I like
in.
it. Yep. I like it.
Alrighty.
We could even say we're going to start with that one that fell on that guy.
Yep.
And say, yeah, here, let's get this done. We gotta make our way slowly from the entrance in.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
It's like the old like contractor classic, right? You go into like hang a painting, and then the next thing you know, it's you got to replace all the plumbing in the house.
Yeah, right. That's right. You might as well.
Yeah.
We're here anyway. We might as well take care of the drainage system, because otherwise, you'll really be paying for it down the line.
I'm just thinking of
Moonstruck has a great scene on that, by the way, where he's scraping at the pipes and he's shaking his head at what crap they are. Anyway,
I just think of there was a Hogan's Heroes episode where they graffitied the ammo dump and then they had to repaint it. So they put a tarp over the door and they had people coming and going in the ammo dump to get shotgun. It's like gunpowder. And it's like, oh, you need to go into the tarp and paint, and then oh, you need to go into the tarp and paint, and they're just swapping out to
exactly, exactly.
gunpowder. Oh man, Hogan's Heroes.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. So that's a good plan if we need to spend any amount of time here. But
What do you need to do? Or what are you gonna do in the interim? It's about 4, so we'll go for another like maybe 20 minutes to investigate, and then we can do talky talk.
yeah.
Right.
Do our
And
coffee.
as usual with Thursdays, I'll have to bow out at that point.
Okay.
But yeah, I think we can try and get the tablet off the wall quick if it looks like, and if not, basically if there's nothing behind it, put it back and start looking for other tablets behind other coffins.
Yeah. Maybe while Jarl and Haya are doing that, Fairfield will go. If there are any coffins like actually on the ground, he'll just open some lids and peek inside.
Yeah, I've got a crowbar. Haya can stay on lookout, and I'll see if I can just pop that thing out of there and see if there's, or is it, if there's anything behind it.
Okay. Do that. Make me. I kind of want to say make me like a dex check, because you're
Oof,
trying
your
to
dex check.
get like it behind and not break it, but you also need strength.
Right. Yeah, I got a high strength. I have a normal dexterity, so I could certainly just do a strength check or a dex check if you want.
Let's do a dex check, because that would make sense.
Dex save seems to be the easiest way to roll that.
Okay. And you don't get plus to it anyway.
No.
Okay. So I got a 9. So you're kind of pulling at it, and you might. So it's a full. I'm trying to. It's not necessarily like the full coffin length, but it's a decent sized tablet, and it's on the back wall, so it's kind of a little hard to get in there and kind of crank it out. You
Can't get the
might
leverage I need.
you get part of it out. You do, unfortunately, because it's clay, break it in half, but when you were reading it and stuff, it doesn't look like it's world-ending spellcraft. But you kind of crack it, and you can look behind it, and it looks like there's nothing really behind it. No alcove of secret treasures or anything.
Okay.
But yeah.
All right. I'll sort of put it back as best I can.
Before you put it back, if you look, give me another like investigation roll to
Oh, sure.
kind of handle it a little bit.
Eesh. Not good.
6. So you're looking at it, and you don't think you're kind of moving around your hand. You don't really get anything else. If someone else wants to roll investigation, they can.
Sure. I got some hands free. And a good investigation score. 19.
Sheriff has already moved on to
Okay.
coffins.
Pulling another coffin out, yeah. So you got a 19. So as as Jarl is kind of moving the tablet around, you catch a glimpse of something on the backside. So you kind of flip it over, and you can see on the backside it has very similar. You point them out to Jarl, and Jarl can be like, "Oh, those are very similar accents and carvings to what's on the outside of the church." So again, these like god of wild magic, etc., chaos symbols on the back of this tablet. So it looks like it was some sort of maybe signed similarly, and then stuck to the back of the wall.
Mm-hmm.
Do we still have the rub? Did we do a rubbing of the back of the original tablet?
You did not. I will not give that to you because you did not do a rubbing of the back of the tablet.
I bet.
But you got the front of the tablet.
All right.
Yeah, I would like to look at
Well,
that.
on the front of the
rubbing.
tablet was very chaosy.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Nothing important. Something about in the end of the world and all
The
that.
whole. Yeah. So you're pulling a coffin out. So what do you want to pick another noble or do you want to pick a priest?
We can do a priest this time because it's
Okay.
different.
So do you want to grab an older one or kind of a newer one?
The freshest looking one.
The freshest looking one. Okay. The freshest looking one looks like it's about like interned about 30 years ago. So there's
Perfect.
probably some poor there's probably someone who was there for like 10 years and then the shattering happened and then there was no more internings. So you kind of pulled this one out and doesn't look like there's anything behind the coffin this time. And pull him out. He's kind of on a high, like a middle one. So this one's a little bit louder of a thud when you pull him out. And this one doesn't look like it's moved at all or disturbed. He doesn't really have much on his person. Maybe there's a prayer book in there. Or there is a prayer book in there that looks well worn. And he has his hands clasped over it, so it doesn't look like someone has pulled it out. But you can take it out if you want to look at it. And his clothing is kind of starting to fray, but isn't destroyed. And it's kind of a greenish, kind of a nice green, interlaced, and it has the symbol of what you presume is Terranval on the chest.
All right, another one.
Okay, what you're going for?
Noble.
Noble.
Freshest noble.
The freshest noble.
Only the freshest nobles served in this catacombs. Good
Well, we
sir.
already did the oldest one. We got to get the whole spectrum.
That'd be such a good character, a chef who's also a necromancer. He's just searching for the freshest meat.
That's called Sweeney Todd.
Oh, fair enough.
So you pull one of the nobles down. This noble looks like he's has much more stuff on him than the old noble, like a lot more bling, like some wrist cuffs, some wrist cuffs. Big bracelets, the chunky bracelets. That's what I wanted to say. I don't remember, they have a name, but I don't remember what it is. But chunky bracelets and a lot of gemmed rings, and this one also doesn't look necessarily disturbed, but it doesn't look like this coffin has been taken out before. Like not a lot, but just like once or twice you see there's scratching from where the roof has been moved in and on and off. And behind it, there's nothing behind it.
What do we have left? Old priest? Let's do the oldest priest.
All right, an oldest priest. Now you have an option. There's a priest from, it looks like from when you're looking at the coffin, it's the first priest. So the first head priest of this chapel. And then from what you're looking at, there is the second head priest of the chapel.
Let's do the oldest one.
The oldest one? Okay.
Commit to old. Yeah.
Commit to old. Okay. So you grab the oldest one. As you pull him out, you notice that this coffin lid is actually kind of broken. not necessarily like in two, but there's chunks of the corners that have kind of gotten broken off over time.
Mhm.
And as you take him out, he also is holding a book of prayers, but it definitely looks like, you know, like the old noble where the hands and wrists have kind of gotten creaked and broken into different spots. It looks like they've tried to make it look like he's holding the book, but it doesn't look like that book's been taken off of his person and put back several times.
Mm. I'm gonna
And
take it.
you take it. Okay. All right, you take the prayer book. And as you're looking at the coffin and you're looking, so like I imagine the priests and the nobles are like on opposite sides, opposite walls. And you notice that this behind the priest is also another tablet of some variety. Um, it looks like it's the same blackened clay stuck to the back of the wall.
Yeah. I'm just gonna open the book and see if I recognize the language it's written in.
Okay. Um, are you flipping through it, or are you just opening to a random page?
Just like leafing enough that
Okay.
you can see, is it in common or elvish or dwarvish? Is it a recognizable script?
Mm-hmm. Some of it is in common, a recognizable script, so it looks like they're just regular prayers. But as you're kind of leafing through towards the back, um, it looks like there's like a false, like I'm trying to think like a book. Kind of looks like it has like some sort of like a false cover or a folder that you can kind of slide open in the cover to reveal extra pages.
Mm.
It kind of has a thicker back cover, and on the back of that cover there is another kind of set of things that are not in a script that you recognize.
Okay. So I'm gonna point out the tablet to Jarl
Okay.
and see if he can use his ancient elvish pseudo underground skills again.
Right. I'll come
Okay.
over and try and make sense of it as best I can. Hopefully, some of this stuff is coming back to me now that I'm seeing so much of it.
Yeah. Give me, I don't know, what's a good language skill? Like investigation again? I don't want you to keep rolling investigation.
Yeah, I mean, languages are not generally speaking subject to tests in D and D. I've
That's
always been a little
true.
surprised at that. It's kind of on and off.
Yeah. Just roll
I
me
can
kind of
make
like
a
just
what's
roll
that?
just roll a perception check. You're looking at
Okay,
this thing. You're trying to make something out of it. Uh,
14.
14. Okay. So you're looking at this tablet. It looks like it's in a similar, looks like it's in the same script. But this one actually has a certain, it looks kind of like a map in some way, like a very rough sketched, or like it's hewn in the tablet, and it looks like there are certain spots that are pressed into it, and then a general like shape. Um, so it's not a detailed map. It's really just a blob with certain dots on it. Um, and then there's some scribbles or some script off to the side that you recognize a few of the words um, that say, you know, they look like. I'm getting so many boops on the Discord. Um, there's definitely looks like location names, but they're location names that are not like you go. That's a location name, but there's nothing that you can recognize from your experience of the Underdark of places that you would know. But they definitely
Hmm.
look like they have the same nomenclature as a location.
They have the same nomenclature as an Underdark location specifically.
Yeah, like if a location is written in Undercommon, you're like, that's a
Yeah.
location would be written in Undercommon.
Right. All right. Well, I share all this with Verifa and say I think we definitely want a rubbing of this one.
All right.
Yep. And then would there be any way that we would? Oh no, it's Underdark. Never mind. Um, Yeah, I think maybe I will use my whatever makes more sense. Either my thieves tools or um
Does someone have forgery tools?
I have a forgery
yeah,
kit and proficiency.
yeah.
Probably that one.
Forgery. Okay, so then I'll hand Lud the book and explain the weird
Oh, this is
pop-up
the book, not a tablet.
Yeah,
You're saying.
yeah,
Oh,
the
it's called- okay.
flap with extra pages in it,
I
and
gotcha.
have him do
Mhm.
his investigation or whatever.
What would you like me to roll?
Arcana,
DM?
maybe.
What would it be? It would be dexterity with your proficiency for the toolkit.
Is it? I don't know how forgery kit works. This is only the second time I've ever used it in 5e.
I wish toolkits had better. I wish skills in general in
Yeah.
in this game were better. Oh, my tablet's supposed to be there.
I'm gonna Google quickly. But also, is it worth doing an Arcana check on the text and the extra pages and just seeing what's going on with it?
Sure. So the extra. So if you're looking at the extra, oh, this doesn't have an index because sadness. I'm just like, oh, I'll look at things, and
Here's a list of things. A forgery kit can be used. This is from Xanathar's Guide to Everything. A forgery kit can be used in conjunction with the Arcana skill to determine whether an magic item is real or fake. A well-crafted forgery, such as papers proclaiming you are a noble, or a writ that grants safe passage, can lend credence to a lie with deception. A forgery kit can be combined with the knowledge of history to improve your ability to fake historical documents or tell if an old document is authentic. With history, with investigation, you can determine whether an object was made or is genuine, just generally speaking. And then you can also use it in congruence with cartographer's tools to make a fake map. And also you can make a quick fake that is a page long, once per long rest, and the DC is based on intelligence, investigation to spot it. So that's the Xanathar's extras.
Artificers have the right tool for the job, which means that I can use thieves' tools or artisans' tools basically as any artisan's tools. So
yeah,
Cool.
probably.
calligrapher supplies, cartographer's tools.
It seems like what they're going for.
It's not a forgery kit, though, right?
Yeah.
It seems like what
A calligrapher or cartographer we could use.
It seems
Yeah,
like what they're trying to go for is like you can blend your toolkits and roll your skill checks to use your toolkits, but that confuses how the proficiency bonus is even applied, even if it is a cool idea.
To give advantage, yeah, you could use it to say, well, because you have those tools, you can have advantage on the investigation check or history check or
Yeah.
whatever. But the thing is that trips me up is that we're not trying to produce something to fool someone else. We're not
Right.
trying to do something in a as a forgery. We're just trying to preserve information, which seems straightforward to me.
Yeah, so Player's Handbook Calligrapher's Supplies is of little help in deciphering the content of magical writings. Proficiency with these supplies can aid in identifying who wrote a script of a magical nature.
Ooh.
And to analyze or investigate ancient writings, scrolls, or other texts, including runes etched in stone or messages in frescoes or other displays. Or to decipher a treasure map.
Yeah. Go for it.
So calligrapher's supplies.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you get some DCs for it too.
DCs.
So does that mean I have to do it?
Yes.
I could offer help.
They're my fancy tools. You're gonna help me?
Yeah, I'll give you a help action. Why not?
Too bad I had to re-roll that. Oh shoot! I only roll one die because I'm okay. 12 plus whatever. Plus what are we doing? What kind of check? Investigation, maybe.
You're trying to make a
Um,
copy? Is that what you're trying to do?
maybe.
We're just
Yeah.
trying to figure out whatever we can about these extra pages.
Oh, then yeah.
You know
Oh,
what
I
they
thought
even
you were
are.
making I thought you were making rubbing. That's what my brain went to. You're making the rubbing.
Oh, I was saying we were looking at those the extra folio that folds out of the prayer book.
Okay. Sure. I thought we were still on the rubbing. My brain did not catch up because I was looking.
I missed that too.
at stuff.
Sorry.
So let's say you did the toolkit to get the forgery, and now you're looking at the thing.
Yeah.
So you're good with that. Okay. Yeah. I'm trying to get this. So the prayer book you have is you're looking at the prayer book, kind of trying to figure out what script it is and such. It doesn't look like anything you guys have seen. It kind of looks like a weird script, or it looks like it's the same script as Undercommon, but when Jarl looks at it, it just gibberish. It might be like looking into like thinking about like forgery or having experience with thieves. It might be encoded in some way, but it's double encoded because it's in Old Elvish script and it's in a code. So, and looking through the book, kind of leafing through, it doesn't look like there's a key of any kind. It might be something that had been passed down or something.
That's rough.
Unless the key is the other stone.
Wait a second.
Right.
Actually, that's not a terrible idea, Verfa. Ask yourself this. Why would you produce these insanely complicated and specific documents in a room that also has terribly mediocre, horrible spells scrawled on the wall?
And it turns out I'm onto something.
Yeah. What if those are a decoy, but also possibly the key for the cipher? But we don't know the language, so we can't decipher it anyway.
Right, exactly. It's like the first word of each of those spells, the first letter of each word, that kind of thing.
Or like stack the words,
Right.
and then
Right.
You said it yourself.
right.
Those are incredibly old carvings for being stupid spells.
Yep. Okay. So we take a rubbing of both tablets. Am I missing? Were we missing the second priest? We might as well check that out if we have time.
Okay.
Take the rubbings of the two tablets. Take the book with us. Go meet Rob at the tavern.
Man, what a time to not have Kamiko around.
Yeah. Set up the whole, shtick with, the repair work going on so people aren't going back there.
Right. We can do that probably next time, it sounds like.
Yeah.
It sounds like a good moment to take the information we have, get out of here and go have a drink.
Yes.
Okay.
What a turn of events, my God.
And Bulgar perks up in the baby Bjorn at the sound of having a drink.
So, on our way back to the ruined church and talking with the curator guy, I'm just gonna like scribble on a sheet of paper, like some supplies, maybe have Verifa do that, right? Just like as if we've taken notes on a bunch of different places, like Arch 1, Doorway 5, all these different things, and then just on our way out, we'll just sort of say, all right, well, we're going to have to go get some estimates together, and we'll be back tomorrow with that. But it's lucky that we stopped by. You were on the brink of disaster.
Oh, really? Well, that's surprising. Not necessarily.
You got to trust the dwarves.
Would recommend not letting anybody down there except us. And
until we can be sure it's safe.
Rob. Yeah, exactly.
Well, sure.
I'm, as you know, like you wouldn't wish the kind of headache you've got today or worse on anybody else, right? I know that's got to be the case. Because
Just
you're a good man. You think about other people, and you're looking after their safety too. I appreciate that about you.
just count yourself lucky to have come into some dwarven fortune.
Oh, so he kind of goes, okay. Give me a quick
Persuasion.
persuasion with advantage, because
All right, I'll do persuasion with advantage. Oof. All right, I'm going to roll another superiority die.
Alrighty. How many of
Man.
those do you have per long rest?
I have 5 per short rest.
That's
Oh,
really
okay.
good.
That's an 11.
Okay.
Not so bad.
So he goes, well, I can understand your points, but we can't, disallow everyone from down there, but I'll make sure to limit the traffic.
All right,
And you know
fair
what?
enough.
That makes sense to me. But do us a favor and at least keep a record of who goes down there. That way, if something happens, we can keep a, they're accounted for.
I'll try to remember. I'll try to a mental note of who's coming and going.
Perfect.
All right.
All right,
And away we go.
and away you go.
Yeah.
Mystery.
Well, that was really fun,
at
Morgan.
The church.
This is
Yeah.
interesting. I hadn't expected it to be. I was like, oh my god, we're gonna. So this is just that the season 3 Castlevania act with Trevor and Sypha, and then we get to the bottom and it's cryptography, and I'm like, what?
I
Yeah.
wanted it to be something like I wanted you guys to interact with the living knowledge of before the shattering, because there's people who are alive, because medieval commoners could live up to 40 or 50. Like, there's still people alive. They're gonna die soon, but they're still alive who have knowledge of before the singularity. So I wanted that to be present in some way or shape, form.
Yeah, I'm really curious to talk to Rob and see if he remembers hearing any stories of things like from his grandparents' day, right? Whatever this was that happened 10 or 15 years after the church was established, was there some major event? I'd be very curious to hear that. Help
So you
us
kind of want
understand.
ask him for ghost stories.
Yeah, and other things about, from before his time. What do people say about this town and some of the, creepier things that people heard about or knew about or
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. Depending how long these rituals have been going on, who knows what,
Mm.
how that manifests in the people's relationship with the church.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right, I'm gonna hang up. Thanks, everybody. Thanks,
Alrighty.
Morgan. It's really fun.
Yeah. We'll see you. I'll see you next week. But
Right.
but D&D will see you in 3 weeks to a month.
Sounds good. I hope we can make the 19th work if we do it in person or whatever
That's so
we're gonna
cool.
do. That'd be fun. Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be great.
All right. Bye-bye.
I'll have to get snacks or something if we do it in person. I'll go to the alcohol store and get something or another.
Yeah.
I'll drink on stream. We got the adult filter up.
Yeah. We drink on
know.
stream as it is.
I'll just drink some water.
Yeah. Orange juice.
But yeah.
You've accidentally
Okay.
given me an amazing idea for a backup character. I have never played a cleric in 5e, period. But now that there's a bunch of people going around desecrating churches, even if it's in the past, I can imagine a character that's from an order of exorcists.
Okay.
Was traveling around the world, trying to get a sense of what their family even is supposed to do post the shattering. Chasing ancient evils. Very little concept of what they should be doing for themselves.
A multi-classed cleric and ranger.
Ooh, yeah. It could be really good.
It's got that kind of feel, out on the outskirts, trying to.
I love rangers, so I bet I could make that happen. God, it's just that ranger is so everything they've done to ranger over the years has made it. I mean, the 3.5 ranger is much easier, but 5e ranger can be really hard to work with.
But if you do work with it effectively, I had a ranger who would, he was level 5, I think, level 4 or 5, but he was able to put thorns down because he had that. So he was like, I put thorns down and then I shoot them. And that's kind of what his strategy was for most combats was I'm going to put the thorns down. I'm going to make sure I'm in a good spot. Longbows are redonkulous in 5e. Like, oh, I'm just going to shoot him at 200 feet. What?
Well,
And I don't get a disadvantage unless they're within 15 feet of me. It's like, okay.
I have a
they can be
go-to.
really broken.
Yeah, I have a
some
go-to ranger build that at level 5 can fire an arrow 1,200 feet with 0 disadvantage on it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a useless build because nobody sets up that kind of long-range combat.
No,
Right.
I don't even. Most of my combats aren't even 200 feet wide.
Yeah.
Like, why would I want to do that?
It's super fun though. It's nice to like be when you're for that one instance where you're like being chased by something large in the distance and or something's coming to town, it's flying in or something, and you have to defend the fortress, and it's like, all right, I'll start taking shots about 30 minutes before they get here.
But yeah, I'll be honest. I had a lot of this. I had a good third of this campaign of this module written out, and then I was like, oh, okay, this did not take as long as I thought it would. We're gonna just go with it. So it turned out really well, and I'm happy how it went. And
Did we just skip a
there's
ton of content?
no, I just didn't have a lot written out. It's one of those things. I'm sure that I don't know if you'll encounter this, Luke. You'll have like 4 pages written out, and then you'll do those 4 pages in an hour, and you'll be like, wait, shit.
Yeah.
That was supposed to be a 3-hour campaign.
Yeah. My strategy is to sort of to to do as much of it randomly. Like I'm a huge random table fan. So like I think as long as the tables you build, and too bad Matthew isn't here to comment on this, but as long as the tables that you build fit within the umbrella of the world that you're trying to build, I mean, things can only go so far sideways, right? I would rather correct, an interesting line of thought and have, let the players have all the agency they can handle than, try to, I don't know. Railroad isn't an accurate term, but
I hope I didn't railroad too bad and be like, this is what you need to look at. But I did write down. I love writing down what people think is happening because sometimes it's more interesting than what I thought was going to happen. I'm like, oh yeah, like there's tablets and they need to research it, and that would make sense. Yeah, sure, I'll
yeah,
write that down.
that's kind of where I'm at. Is like, yeah. I mean, if a player comes up with an idea, not only is your job easier as a DM to incorporate it, right? But then I think it just it increased investment in the story.
Oh yeah.
I find it really
sure.
fun to try and navigate these complex sections with like a very single-minded character in a sense. It's really weird to like because there are characters that are very flexible and there are characters with high specialties that they're like, yeah, okay, we can do this, and when you put somebody who's like a fish out of water into that such circumstance and they're still interested, so they're still trying to contribute, but you don't have the skills to like actually do anything, it's like, oh, well, all right. It becomes very interesting. That's another thing I would kind of wish Matthew was here, because I feel like Balgir is often in that position where he has like a very niche specialty, but doesn't necessarily come up all the time out of combat, but he's constantly inserting himself into everything that we do, for better or for worse.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think it depends because I love improvising and just going with things like, oh, there's a catacombs here. Yeah, that makes sense. It's a church. Catacombs. Yeah. Yeah, let's go to the catacombs. That makes sense.
Well, you're gonna hide
But
something in a
people-
church, you know?
Well, that's why I kind of gave you the option. There's the back room behind the altar, and then there was what you could see was like a catacomb sort of idea.
Yeah.
But I just like I had an idea, a feel, a vibe, and we went with that vibe. So that's what we did. And I think it was a good good cliffhanger episode for the next time of the mystery has continued and now you are stuck in it. What do you do?
It's the first episode in a while where I've thought, yeah, we're gonna level up soon. You know,
Yeah.
there's there's an interesting. I feel like there's a feeling to that where you like as a character go, oh, we're making like significant progress. It feels like we're working better together as a team. And this was the first episode in a while where I was like, yeah, okay, I could see us getting to level 5 in the future.
You know, I have never had a feeling of anticipation of leveling up because I almost forget as a player, like the way that DMs do, that leveling up happens over the course. You know what I mean? Like I mean, I know that Verify is kind of like a not useless, but like, and part of that just happens to be like I just have no idea what an artificer is actually supposed to do, right? But I'm happy with it. You know what I mean? Like I'll lumber along with my 39 hit points, and you know, as long as the DM manages to not like throw something at us that is just like not going to happen, whatever, you know, I'll play at level 3 for forever.
Yeah, for me, I have this whole thing about non-combat progression in D&D being non-existent. Like, yeah, when you level up, you can get like a skill feat, and you can get some more skills, or you can get some more languages. You can get some like toolkit knowledge with downtime, but it's not like if you're not doing combat constantly and like as a DM ramping up the combat difficulty. And with me, I don't like doing combat in D&D because it's long and boring to me. As a DM, I'm doing stuff, but at any given time, there's only 2 people actually doing stuff during a turn, and so it just kind of drags on and gets boring for other players.
Yeah.
But it's like I wish there was something a little bit extra, like, oh, you get some extra proficiency in a toolkit or something that you could like tack on and feel the progression non-character wise. Like, you're talking to your party and you're hanging out with your party outside of combat. Like, why wouldn't you pick up some undercommon? Like,
Right.
Yeah, having like
Yeah.
almost two separate leveling systems, a combat level
yeah,
and a
or even like when
non-combat
you
level.
have levels, if to just have an extra utility, be like have the ability to be like, oh, I'm just gonna, I'm gonna be at a disadvantage for my skills this level, and the next, or disadvantage for, Elvish this level because I've been learning from the Elvish bard, and then the next level, I'm at normal. So it's
Yeah.
like a 2-level time to get to a skill. Feels that
You
way.
could try proficiency dice. I don't know if that would, I mean, and then you know you level up your dice, right? You start out with D4s, and then instead of leveling up, your proficiency goes to a D6, right?
Yeah,
Or whatever.
that's how Savage Worlds does it. Where they
Does
don't
it?
give you pluses. They go, oh, you started a D4, and then you can go to a D6 and a D8 and a D10 and a D12, and then you get bonuses from there if you get past D12s, which is almost never happens anyway. But that's
Yeah.
kind of how. And Savage Worlds progression kind of stalls after a bit, but I just want more stuff in D&D to be non-combat orientated, and I know it's a combat system, so I'm asking too much of it.
There
but
is
but I wish.
one RPG system that I want to try is called Gumshoe, and it's like a
It's a
Okay.
detective RPG, isn't it? That sounds
yeah, it's like a
awesome.
detective mystery. There's I don't know if it's like an official version of it, but it's the who did that? There's a pod Very Random Encounters did one of Bubble Gumshoe, where it's like the high schooler mystery stuff, like the Scooby Doo version of it, basically. Anyway, the way that works is that you have points in the various skills, like say 6 points or whatever, and all of the die rolls are just D6, and so you get like your check of 4 or 5, and you can always add points in your skills to whatever you roll.
Okay.
So it's sort of an interesting, like you like use up your skill kind of, where like you maybe are getting worn out, right? Like research is one of your skills, and you just can't spend any more time in a library, right?
Yeah.
Until and I'm sure there's a way to, I haven't read through it yet, but I'm sure there's a way to like recoup the points,
And I think that's a really. It would be, I don't know. For me, like D&D 5e, it's very basic, and that's fine. That's great for people who want to get into D&D. But at the end of the day, I'm thinking like, but what if we had like edges and hindrances where you have personality points that if you did something with those, like Lud's only writing in pictography.
Yeah.
Like if he
Right.
played into that, and I had a system where I could give him like a benefit, because in Savage Worlds they have edges and hindrances. And if you play into your edges or hindrances, say you're arrogant and you just play into that, like, yeah, I'm the best there is. I'm just gonna go punch this golem. You're gonna die. It's fine. I can do this. You get a Benny, which is just a free reroll,
Right.
pretty much. And
Yeah.
it incentivizes playing into your character and role playing into your character. D&D doesn't have any incentives to role play into your character.
Right.
Yeah.
To be like, yeah.
They give you
Yeah.
some like some of these psionic quirks that they give you for the mystic are start to do those sorts of things. Some of them are stupid, and some of them are absolutely kind of fantastic. Like what's it? You write down the name of each creature you slay and name the ones that are unnamed. All the money you get, you spend within 1 week of gaining it. So, there's shit like that. Or you only consume water and raw vegetables. That one's pretty good too.
Yeah, and
but
like,
those are
there's
fantastic. There's no incentive for me to actually roll
Right.
that out.
Yeah. And like for like I have a Tabaxi, another campaign, and they have a random table that is what you're obsessed with this week, pretty much. Like, are you obsessed with a specific book, or are you obsessed with a specific tale? Like, because Tabaxis are go out and learn about the world and then come back, right? That's kind of what their thing is. But they get obsessed with things because they're cats. So, but I was like, in a group that I know is going to be super roleplay heavy, or the DM wants to be roleplay heavy. Whether that actually is or not, that is to be seen. But I know that I'll be able to play into that, and that's kind of why I picked a Tabaxi, because it's like, oh well, it's going to be a roleplay heavy campaign. She's going to be a Siberian, a snow leopard. It's going to be great. She'll have a Russian accent, and it'll be great. Like, that's what my idea of building as a roleplay character. But I feel like because D&D isn't built around the roleplay, I don't know if it was ever built around the roleplay, but it's not built around the roleplay anymore if there was ever any roleplay built around it. And so you just get combat focused classes, and you're like, but what if the fighter wants to learn performance from the bard so he could do a little tap dance with it?
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
that would be pretty cool.
Right. Yeah, that's what's weird to me about like the artificer. Like there isn't any sort of like that exact thing where it's like, the whole premise of it is that you're out there tinkering with stuff, and you just happen upon these things that kind of work together, right? And you can replicate that over time. But it's like, okay, so what's stopping Fairfa from, like rigging up a pulley system to, to build a trap to catch the Peritons instead of fighting them, right? Like,
yeah.
and the only thing stopping him is the fact that that's not what the character is built for, right? Like you're disincentivized by like a series of roles versus just saying like, hey, I'm going to do this thing, and the DM saying, yeah, that's cool, do it.
Yeah, that's kind of the prerogative I go through. It's like, oh, I'm a battle, like Thomas does, like, well, I'm a battle master, so I have all these things that I can do, and it's like, yeah, but you're out of combat, so if you just want to say you're doing something, do it.
Yeah.
Like, that's kind of how I go. Like, for me, I treat combat and non-combat as like two entities. Like in non-combat, rule of cool rules 100%. But in combat, the way that the system is built is if someone goes, I want to do this weird thing, I'm like, okay, you're gonna have to roll for it, because on the next turn, the fighter's gonna do exactly what his character sheet says that he would like to do,
Right.
and he's gonna roll for it. So it has to be a somewhat equal system, that I can't just go like, oh, rule cool, you can do that. It'd be like, okay, no, you have to give me a roll, and if you fail it, then it's not your turn anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it makes me kind of wish I had built the rune scribe, my normal rune scribe ranger, and just seen how it had gone. Because rune scribe is like in a weird spot between those two things, where it's like, okay, it has abilities like double the range on your bow if you can sit there and enchant it for 4 hours, or cast this fire spell with a spell slot, or something like that. But it also has shit like you can turn on and off fires by snapping your fingers, like small fires. So you can, heat someone's tea up with a snap of your fingers, or you can freeze water. And if you inscribe the runes to under your shoes, you have shoes now that you can use to walk on water by freezing it underfoot, so you've got or you get tremor sense, right? You're able to touch the ground and kind of see who's on the other side of walls and stuff. And that is a really useful skill. But it also could be used as a leveling tool. Like if you were a builder, you could touch a wall and be like, yeah, this wall's level, or it's not level. And so it's interesting that they've created, especially in the RuneScribe, this generalist class, the only prestige class in 5e, that has so much roleplay ability, and none of the abilities capitalize on it for anything.
Yeah. It's one of my big issues is the roleplay is optional in D&D, which is fine. But I'm a roleplay heavy kind of player, so I'm like, but I want to be incentivized. I want to feel like the system is aiding in my role playing. Like, yeah, ideals, flaws, and values are a thing, but I almost never use them because they're very generic, archetypey, tropey things. And it's like, well, I don't want the edgy. I have to save my family from the demons.
Yeah.
I want to
I
make
want
my
to
own
be Liam
thing.
Neeson in every game. No.
Yeah, I don't. I feel like that's kind of what the values, bonds, and flaws are. They're there for newer characters if you want to oh, here are some things. Here's some options that you can play with. It's what sounds fun, but for older, more experienced players, probably better just to go to a different system.
Yeah.
Like even Shadowrun, for all of its stupid systems and how gritty it can be, has it built in with edges and hindrances. There's a hindrance that you're allergic to something, and it can be a severe allergy. It's just, why is it there? Well, because maybe I had a drone rigger who was allergic to gold, and so his appearance was this dwarf. So he had low charisma, and he had hive and pockmarks from all of the places that he scratched at his hives because he'd made drones and messed with gold all the time because of his circuits. So he had all of these little pockmarks from where he scratched. That's great. You don't get that in D&D.
No, you have to homebrew it in, and
it's not built in D&D. I'll say
Ours
it's not built in D&D.
in my campaign we're going to use I think when somebody does something that is particularly like if they make a character choice versus like a mathematical choice, I'm just going to give them like inspiration, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then they can use it when it makes sense to use it, right? We'll see.
I also
just experimental.
How do I put this right? With 5e, the traits and values and stuff need a hard rewrite. I mean, they have since the beginning, but the problem is there are only a few of them that are genuinely fun and unignorable. One of them that I like quite a bit is if I see a piece of treasure, I can only think of how to steal it. This, results in some interesting interactions where the thief, as opposed to doing a rational thing, looks at a piece of gold and goes, I need it, and then runs over there and tries to grab it. But I also really like the charlatan one where it's like, yeah, I lie about almost everything for no apparent reason, Because then you get some dumb interactions where even if you are robust friends with a party will say, well, did you, cook dinner for us last night, or am I forgetting something? You'll go, no, you cooked dinner last night. And then that starts this interesting back and forth where it's like, what the fuck? But I feel like especially the values really suffer from this. They're all so lofty and focused on classic ideas about adventuring. And I think that I almost think Acquisitions Incorporated is more fun for those things than other D&D editions.
And I think that was kind of really the point. I just want more flavor. Give me more flavor on my character sheet.
Yeah.
And I guess
and use the flavor that's there somehow, right?
Yeah, or as a DM you can incentivize it, but even inspiration, it's just it's just like a forced advantage, right? Like what if it was just I don't know. D&D 5e doesn't allow for random bonuses. I really want to just give you guys +2s on things. I don't want to give you advantage because that's a big leap from just a normal roll. But if I say I'll give +2, it's like, oh, just a +2.
Yeah.
I don't get advantage on this.
Yeah, I mean It makes sense, like on like in a persuasion or performance or something. If your personality trait affects that in some way,
Yeah,
given the circumstances, why not?
yeah.
Couple
Tap
points
+2.
here. Yeah.
Yeah, but then people get, because, and I get the feeling that like the people who are really embedded in 5e and doing 5e are kind of like, well, why don't I get advantage? Like +2s are not in the system. It's either
Right.
advantage, disadvantage, or nothing. Like,
Right.
and I wish, because like I know in like 3.5 you could definitely do this. In 4.0, you could just, you just give pluses to people, and that was the whole point of combat, was here, have this pluses, here they have the plus. Oh, I can give you a plus, and now you're rolling at a plus like 10 against the
Hmm.
against the dragon. Like, hey, that's great.
Yeah.
But it's like 5e,
Yep.
you're so
Yeah.
popular yet so flawed. That's why I was if I'm around for the next Doctor's DMs, or if I get a chance to do one shots, I do it in Savage Worlds, because Savage Worlds is very much like a, you tell me what you want to do and I'll tell you what to roll. Whereas in D&D it's like, oh well, why don't you do investigation?
Right.
And then the players are empowered to be like, I don't think it's investigation, I think it's nature. It's like, okay, well, okay, nature.
Yeah. I also find it really, like, there's no longevity to a fight. Like, actually, I shouldn't say that. Here's the thing. 5e scales like shit at high levels. 5e doesn't have good roleplay kind of integration. It has some. It really expects you to add all of it.
There's a lot of space for homebrew. There's too much space for homebrew.
A lot of space for homebrew. On top of all of that, 5e does two things that I think are incredibly dumb. One of them is it's really hard to kill your players. So the need for them to scale well is insane, because you're not going to wipe a player unless they want to leave. And two, and this is the thing that I literally, for some reason, I can't stand the most personally, there is no upgrade system for your equipment. So for all of the combat stuff they have, you cannot take a sword that was given to you by like your grandparents as a player and upgrade that sword the way you can in 3.5 by giving it +1s and spell storing and all of that.
You can.
I mean, you can if your DM allows it, but there is no integrated system for it.
There is, actually. It has to be. It's like downtime. Downtime doesn't.
Is it like in the downtime section of the DM's handbook or something? Because I've read this thing, I've never seen it.
It's Level Xanathar's Guide to Everything adds options to silver weapons and to add plus, like, make magic items.
Okay, but that's not quite this. All right,
It's
I
not
should
quite
say,
but you can. It's easily alterable, I guess.
you.
Like, silvering something pretty much makes it a magic weapon. Like, pretty much.
I mean,
Or
yes, but you know what I'm talking. You know what I'm talking about as far as like the 3.5. You have no idea. Okay, in 3.5, you can pay money.
You can pay money to upgrade.
To upgrade, but you have like specific upgrades for different types of weapons, specific upgrades that scale, specific upgrades that etc. Banes and boons, whatever else. It's a very robust system compared to 5e not having any of it. You know.
Mm-hmm.
Also,
yeah,
if it all came in Xanathar's, then they added it post-launch.
Yes.
And these issues about longevity existed in the original book.
And I still think, even with when I was reading downtime activities, I was really angry they weren't in the player's handbook. Because I'm like, they should be available to players so players can advocate, saying, hey, I want to go make a castle keep. Can I just go do that? And having the knowledge that's in the game, because my players, my other group, one of them is a DM and the rest of them are just players. They don't know that downtime activities exist. So as a DM who's just kind of doing my own thing, I'm like, hey, what do you guys want to do in downtime? They don't know what downtime is. They're like, we'll go buy some potions. It's like, well, you could go carouse and go to bars and like getting good with the nobles, but because it's not in the player's handbook, they haven't read that. And so it's up to the DM to say that it exists. And that's the same thing with crafting, and the same thing. Well, crafting is a little bit in player's handbook, like a little bit.
Yeah, they need a system for crafting, and I think if they created a system for crafting, it should scale to the downtime activities that are listed, right? Like first thing listed, building a keep, right? Like that's not the first thing I'm going to do. I'm going to go collect some ingredients and make a potion. Yeah,
I'm gonna
I
get a
think
cat. That's what I want to do in my downtime. I
You
want a
wanna get a
mundane
cat?
pet.
You
Yeah.
want to get a cat, or like, there's like what we were talking about with magic items. Like a great downtown activity is to go hunt down magical items. It is
Mhm.
there's a system for it in Xanathar's. It's a very poor system. But like going and doing that stuff, but it's like it's just not there,
Yeah.
and it sucks. But I understand why they boiled it down to just combat with a few tacked on systems alongside it. But I kind of wish they had did a little swerve, like a good middle ground. Like 4th edition had some problems with its combat, but it did still have some of the semblances from 3.5 with non-combat stuff.
And
Yeah.
this is the last thing I'll say about the weapons thing. To the point of why the weapon system doesn't include robust upgrading, I completely understand why. It's because at the point where you have people upgrading their weapons, the game breaks. Like 5e just completely, essentially soft locks. Like what happens is that suddenly now any monster your DM throws at you can one-shot you, but you can do a shitload of damage to any monster because all that's getting stacked onto your regular traits, you know? So it like I've tried integrating older weapon upgrade systems into 5e, and it always ends in either every encounter is trivial or every encounter is a TPK. And that's a soft lock as far as I'm concerned. That's not really playable.
Yeah, 5e combat encounters. When you're trying to add in harder monsters, you have to go homebrew. You have to go
Yeah.
find creatures that are just stupidly broken because they're homebrew, and then fix them as they go. Like, oh, there's too much health. Like for me, health is a guideline. I just go, I want this creature
Yeah.
to be here for 3 combat turns. And if it's homebrew or not homebrew, I'm like, he's there for at least 3 combat turns. And if by that point they've done like 70 points of damage and it's almost killed a guy, it's served its purpose. It can die after 3 rounds.
Yeah. Yeah, I think my solution would just be to like keep track of the upgrades, and for every upgrade, like every +1 to the upgrade, like I just add a D4 to the health of the creature. You know, like, I mean, you know, and
Yeah, that makes sense.
yeah, I mean, a lot of times it's going to be 1 for your +1, and you know, whatever. But if you hit it 4 times, then you can deal with the 4s. I mean, I don't know. It works in my head. I'd have to try it a few times.
Yeah, it's really like, I mean, I'm sure you can tune a system that feels reasonable, but it's really hard as it stands to make weapons feel like tactile enough to the player that when they make a choice to upgrade a weapon, it's worth it, and tactile enough that, or not tactile enough that it feels like they're just busting down doors every 5 fucking seconds. But it you know, it also helps some of the scaling issue at really high levels, right? Because like a player who's playing a ranger really caps out in terms of what they're going to be able to do in combat at like 15, 16. There's not a lot of scaling after that, so then it can help boost that up.
I don't know. For me personally, once characters get past 10, it's no longer fun for me as a DM, because it's just, do I choose to have a 4-hour long combat, or do I choose to have a 4-hour long story session and not let my 10th level players actually play with the tools that they have? Because that's the issue, is all character progression in D&D is combat. So when you level up someone in like you go from 3 to 4, you're like, oh, I got these spells, I got these new things, it's great, like I want to go smack someone. But in like campaigns that like I run, which I avoid combat because it takes too long, it's like, what's the point in leveling up? Because it's like, oh, I'm just gonna give you more skills that you don't use.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it'd be great if you could have like cool feats, like an ability to get a feat more than once every 4 levels, but like a cool, nice, like non-combat feat of like, oh, I can climb up walls better. Sweet.
Yeah, you want to
go
like
climb up that wall.
You want a portfolio of homebrew feats that you think are reasonable, because I've tried that too to spice the combat system up. Hey, every 3rd level, pull a feat, and what happens is exactly the same thing that happens with the weapon scaling, is that suddenly now everybody's dumb and everything's a TPK or not a TPK.
You don't do, it wouldn't be combat feats. It would be like, hey, you get skilled, or you get the ability to stealth better, like the
Yeah.
things
Or
that
like in
affect non-combat stuff.
Yeah, in persuasion, you can read people's body language, so you
Mhm.
get like +3 or something.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
love the
there's
one that
feats
lets
like
you
that.
remember 24 hours worth of information.
Yeah, like those kind of things that you can use out of combat. Like I
Yeah.
think when I was counting the player's handbook, there are 42 feats in the player's handbook. 7 of them could be non-combat. The rest of them are combat focused.
Yeah.
Now that's like proficiencies in different armors and things, but so.
Yeah.
But it's 5.
It is 5.
Yeah.
Ren, we're going at 6 p.m. Correct?
We can go a little after 6 if that's better for you.
I need to make food. That's all I need to do.
Okay.
But we're gonna end the stream there. Thank you all for coming. If you're still here on the VOD, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you slaved through all this.
Yeah.
Slaved.
This portion of the show has a very particular audience, though.
Very
I
good.
I think I actually, as a viewer, I would tune in more likely to this part than the actual gameplay, maybe.
Yeah. Because I know there's some people who don't like actual plays. I don't watch actual plays. Because I'm like, what's the fun in me watching you play D&D when I
Yeah.
could just go play D&D?
I like the one shots though; those are all right.
I
Yeah, if there's
enjoy
one shots.
if I have like an attachment to the creators or the actors, and I'm like, yeah, I'll watch their D&D session sometimes, but it's content for me to skip over in 99% of cases.
Yeah, it's like it's great that you got a podcast, but like you got to really nail actual plays, because a lot of it's hit and miss, and it's like, well, do I want to spend 3 hours watching this, or do I want to not?
Yeah.
Would I rather go watch like The Princess Bride instead of your actual play? And the answer is almost always yes.
Inconceivable.
Yeah.
But all right,
Okay.
we'll start the stream. Goodbye, stream.
Bye. I'm gonna peace.